Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and today I'm here to talk about the Gen 3 Baton Pass Iceberg. Shoutouts to Jimothy Cool, who has done his own Iceberg video before. You should go watch that out if you're interested in some esoteric Gen 3 lore, or if you're also interested in some of the history of Gen 3, as he talks about some of the things that go on, or have gone on, to change the tier to what it is today. To get started here, let's talk about what this video will be, and that is a brief introduction to some of the Baton Pass concepts that are in the current ADV metagame, and it is also something that you can put on in the background while doing chores. I will have some visuals on screen, we will be looking at some replays, but I'm going to do my best to just commentate and make this an experience that you don't have to give me your whole undivided attention for it. Now, if you want to give me that, then that's fine as well. I'll try to keep everything entertaining as we go on here, but I mean, this video is going to be long, so it's not going to hurt my feelings if you are not giving me the whole 100% undivided attention. What this video is not going to be is a comprehensive history of Baton Pass and ADV. I'm gonna let an old head tackle that one. Like, I do not know what Baton Pass was like in the pre-one passer clause days, because I didn't play ADV back then, and I'm not gonna be the best person to describe that. Now, we will talk a little bit about some of the history when it's relevant, but I'm just going into this, do not expect me to explain why all the rules are the way that they are. This is not also going to be a usage guide for Baton Pass teams or a team dump video. There will be some strategies, and I will show some teams. All the teams that are featured are teams that you can probably find in other places, like the Revival Tournaments team channel, and through other means like the Smogon forums, but no, it's not going to be like a solid me trying out all these teams and things like that. Another thing that this will not be is an argument for whether to ban Speed Pass or not. This is the elephant in the room. Also part of the reason why I'm making this video at this time, but I'm going to try to present just some ideas to you, and then you can come to your own conclusion. You probably already have your own conclusion at this stage, but yeah, let's get on with the video here. So we have the layers, of course. You've watched an Iceberg video before. You know how this goes. This is going to be the least edited Iceberg video you've ever seen. But let's start with layer 1. It's going to be Dry Pass and Phazing. So Dry Pass is referring to using the move Baton Pass without passing any stats or some other additional effects. In this case, Baton Pass is strictly being used as a pivoting move, so you can think about it as a move like U-turn or Volt Switch. As we do not have these moves in Gen 3, like, this is the only pivoting move that there is as an option. So why would you use this over hard switching is usually the question that gets asked when we talk about Baton Pass being allowed in older gens, especially when modern players are looking at this, because in modern gens, Baton Pass is just completely banned outright, I think from Gen 6 onwards. Hard switching is decided on before the turn plays out, meaning that you have to commit to hard switching before you get any information about what your opponent is doing for this turn. That means that it's going to be a lot more prediction reliant. So, take for example, you have Zapdos in versus Tyranitar, and you are deciding whether you're going to switch out or not. Say you immediately hard switch to, say, Skarmory, for example. You're gonna use Skarmory to take the Rock Slide from the Tyranitar. Well, what if the Tyranitar player hard switches to Magneton on that turn? I know, kind of a crazy switch, but if they did, well, your switch to Skarmory looks really bad. Now, if Zapdos uses Baton Pass, what will happen is you'll see your opponent switch to Magneton before you get the chance to decide your switch. You click Baton Pass, and then you can decide to maybe switch to Dugtrio and eliminate that Magneton before it becomes a problem. So that's sort of the idea of why you would want it on a Pokemon, but also if you have a slow Baton Passer, say something like Umbreon, then you can take a hit before switching, which can be really useful because a Pokemon like Umbreon is much better at taking hits than, say, a Pokemon like Aerodactyl. So you can kind of switch to Aerodactyl on that turn without risking Aerodactyl getting KO'd by a strong move. So Dry Passing is really, really good for the tier. I think most people who play ADV like what Dry Pass does for the tier. There are a lot of Pokemon like Jolteon, for example, whose whole sort of gameplay revolves around Dry Passing. Now, that being said, Jolteon doesn't necessarily have to run Baton Pass all of the time, but you get a lot out of Baton Pass on a Pokemon like Jolteon. And it allows Jolteon to have better matchups into things that are otherwise pretty difficult for it, say like Dugtrio, which would trap it if it didn't have Baton Pass. So that's good to note. Some caveats to Dry Passing, though. So disregarding stat changes, so we're going to ignore things like Intimidate and stuff like that that would get passed if you try to Baton Pass. Baton Pass will also pass volatile status conditions, which are basically status conditions that wear off when a Pokemon switches out. So think about something like Leech Seed or Confusion. In fact, we're going to have the examples here. So in green, I have the positive effects like Substitute, Focus Energy, and Ingrain. In red, I have some not positive effects like if you've been blocked or mean looked, that's going to persist. Leech Seed, Confusion, Perish Song, Curse, if it's like, say, like a Ghost type curse. Now, granted, non-Ghost type curse, those stats will also get passed, but this is like what we mean by the volatile status conditions. In future generations, things like Aqua Ring and No Retreat, I guess, would technically get passed as well, but not that you have to worry about that in most generations, and definitely you don't have to worry about that in Generation 3. So Pokemon switching with Baton Pass are not caught by the move Pursuit. So say, for example, you use Baton Pass on Umbreon against a Pursuit Tyranitar, and Tyranitar tries to use Pursuit to hit you. Well, you don't have to worry about that Umbreon taking the Pursuit. You'll just switch to whatever your switching is going to be. Let's say Swampert, and Pursuit will deal damage as if you were staying in. So that's actually pretty good, all things considered. Now let's talk about Phazing. So Phazing, you might not think has much to do with Baton Pass, but it's going to become apparent throughout this video why I want to talk about Phazing. So Phazing, and spelled with a Z, not with an S, is a portmanteau of Pseudo and Haze. Haze being the Pokemon move. The idea behind Phazing is that it forces an opponent to switch to a random Pokemon on their bench. That means that you can get rid of any sort of stat boosting that they've done. So, for example, say Salamence tries to Dragon Dance, and you use Whirlwind with Hariyama. That means that the Salamence is going to lose its +1 attack and +1 speed by virtue of having to switch out. The two moves that are Phazing moves in this generation are Roar and Whirlwind. In future generations, there are moves like Circle Throw and Dragon Tail, and there's probably one more. Somebody in the comments will let me know. In that case, you have a little bit more variety, but for ADV, we're stuck with Roar and Whirlwind, which is not so bad because Roar has some pretty good distribution in this generation thanks to being a TM that a lot of Pokemon can learn. Whirlwind is a little bit more niche. The only Pokemon that really uses Whirlwind anymore is Hariyama. Like, in theory, you could use it on Aerodactyl, but Aerodactyl is not a great phaser because it has really low defensive stats. You could use it on Skarmory, but I guess this is maybe a layer deeper than I was intending, but Skarmory cannot use the moves Whirlwind and Drill Peck on the same set. So it's actually usually better for you to use Roar, because Whirlwind would reveal to your opponent that you do not have Drill Peck on your Skarmory. Now, some people will maybe try to take advantage of that. Maybe you are trying to lure in something like a Breloom that thinks that you don't have a move to hit it, and then you go for HP Flying instead. I guess that's a concept, but we're getting a little too deep in the weeds for this. Let's focus on phasing. So, yeah, like I said, it's going to stop Pokemon that are trying to boost Sweep. So things like your Dragon Dance Salamence, like your Agility Metagross, like your Curse Swampert or something like that. That's really good. All of the phasing moves in this generation, Roar and Whirlwind, are -6 priority, which means that they're almost always going to occur last in the turn order. If two Pokemon use the move Roar on the same turn, then it's the Pokemon that has the higher speed stat will go first, and that will cause the opponent to switch out in this generation. In Generation 2, I believe, actually, if you try to use Roar and your opponent moves after you, it fails. So the slower Roar actually goes first. But in this generation, that is not how it works. It's in fact the opposite. So there you go. I don't believe there are any -7 priority moves in this generation, so Roar is in the bottom of the bracket. In future generations, there are some -7 priority moves. I think like Trick Room, for example. So Roar would actually occur before Trick Room. So that's kind of interesting. But again, we're mostly focused on ADV here. Now we're into Layer 2. We're going to be talking about some of the forms of stat passing. So first, let's talk about CM Pass, or Calm Mind Pass. So Calm Mind is a move that boosts the special attack and special defense of the user by 1 stage each. This is potent on special attackers like Celebi, Jirachi, Suicune, etc. And it's also nice for some defensive Pokemon as well, like Blissey, who kind of like to have some extra special defense. Although, granted, in this generation, I mean, Blissey's already tanky enough. It doesn't really need that boost. It is really nice in Gen 9, though, to get that boost. I digress. Though not every special attacker has the defensive profile to reliably set up CMs, and some of them even just don't have access to the move in the first place. So this is where CM Pass is going to come in. Celebi is the most common CM passer thanks to its combination of good mixed bulk, speed, and access to recovery options. Also, a lot of the other good CM users like Jirachi and Suicune don't have access to the move Baton Pass, so Celebi's kind of got a lack of competition here. But Celebi's not the only Pokemon that can CM Pass. Some other options that you could try are Espeon and Lunatone. Neither of these Pokemon are OU ranked, but they're both not completely terrible in OU. In fact, maybe I'll be making some videos about them in the not too distant future. That is not me saying that I already have them prepped, by the way, but they are some Pokemon that I'm interested in trying out. So if you're interested in that as well, let me know in the comments. Here's an example of a CM Pass team. This is credit to Super Epic Ampharos, or CSEA, whatever you want to call her. She's a great player. I think she's a member of the Smogon Council, or at least for ADV. So we appreciate all the work that she does. This is a really interesting kind of team here, where you have a Baton Pass on Zapdos as well. The idea being that you can Baton Pass against certain leads to try to get some extra momentum early in the game, or you can use Celebi to Baton Pass the Calm Mind to Zapdos, and then Zapdos can continue the Calm Mind Pass to something like Charizard later in the game if you would like to do that. That is how Baton Pass is working in this generation. You are allowed to have more than one Baton Pass user, just not more than one that has stat boosting moves. We'll get a little bit more into that in the future, but this is kind of cool. The Mon that is the most problematic for a CM Pass team like this would be Blissey, obviously, because it's the best special wall in the game. That's why you see some techs on this team like Focus Punch on Swampert and a Choice Banded Metagross, both of which are threatening to kill the Blissey. And if you can remove Blissey, then like you can kind of just CM Pass to whoever you want. You'll also notice that this Tyranitar here, it's like a mixed Tar with Dragon Dance. Kind of cool. Like you can pass the CM to Tyranitar. It's got the +1 special attack for a stronger HP grass. That is pretty much always going to kill a Swampert. Then you have the extra Spadef as well, so that you can boost in front of things like a Suicune or a Milotic, who otherwise are threatening you with pretty strong, super effective stab. Then with your +1 attack and speed, you can be really threatening with your Rock Slide and Earthquake as well. So it's almost like an Omni boost for your Tyranitar right away. The only thing it doesn't get is defense, but I mean, Tyranitar's defense is good enough. You can kind of get away with not getting that boost. You also see like Focus Punch on Charizard as well, which is going to help you out with Blissey in some cases. So, yep. I think this is a cool team. I have not personally tried it out, but I certainly encourage you guys to try it out yourselves if you like this sort of CM Pass idea. SD Pass. So SD, or Swords Dance, is a move that will boost the user's attack by 2 stages. It's really, really powerful. On the first time that you use it, you're doubling your attack stat. It doesn't like continually double your attack. That's not quite how the stat boosts work. It's kind of like a diminishing return where like going to +4 only gives you 3x instead of 4x, for example. You can only get to 6 stages either direction. So you can only be +6, which is ×4, or -6, which is a quarter. So don't worry too much about like stacking to infinity. Though, granted, in this generation especially, if you get to like +4 or +6, that's probably good enough to accomplish all the goals that you need. Strong physical wall breakers like Heracross, Breloom, and Marowak become twice as powerful after 1 SD boost. So you can imagine things like Heracross and their Mega Horn doing massive damage to teams without the boost, and then you multiply that by 2. That's insane. Marowak, it has the item Thick Club, which already boosts its attack by 2, but it stacks with Swords Dance boosts. So, like, Marowak becomes extremely powerful with just 1 Swords Dance boost. I mean, granted, they're all really powerful, but Marowak doubly so. Maybe even quadruply so in a sense. Not many Pokemon have access to Swords Dance, so passing the boost is really valuable. So, all the Pokemon mentioned here, Heracross, Breloom, and Marowak, do have Swords Dance, but say something like Machamp does not get Swords Dance. But you could pass it a Swords Dance, and who's the best passer in the tier? Well, that's going to be Celebi. Similar to to Calm Mind Pass, Celebi's recovery options and bulk make it the most successful at SD passing. That's why this mon is just fantastic. I love this little guy or girl or thing. I think it's genderless, so we're gonna go with thing. And yeah, it's also kind of in a situation where its competition is not that strong. Your other options, realistically, are like Scizor and Absol, who are both kind of niche. Again, not to say that they can't be used, but they're not really that consistent, and Celebi's a lot more consistent. So just like with CM Pass, we're going to look at an SD Pass team, and this is going to be credit to Zamog. I think that's how you say that name. And you can see with this sort of team, what I want to draw your attention to is the Magneton. The reason why is similar to CM Pass having issues with dealing with Blissey, SD Pass has issues dealing with Skarmory. So the idea with this sort of team is that you want Magneton to eliminate Skarmory so that you don't get walled, you don't get roared, you don't get anything like that, so that Celebi can then start to try to Swords Dance Pass away. So Some of the usual suspects here: Tyranitar, Swampert, Metagross, but Aerodactyl is one of the best Pokemon to pass a Swords Dance to. Aerodactyl has fantastic speed. It is basically the fastest Pokemon in the tier. It's tied with Jolteon, and technically it is slower than Electrode and Ninjask, but those Pokemon are a little bit niche. We will be talking about Ninjask, don't you worry. But yeah. I also want to note that this Celebi on this particular team does not have any attacking moves. This is decently common on Stat Pass Celebi, but you can run some of the attacking moves that Celebi gets. For example, HP Rock or Ancient Power are somewhat common. Rock coverage is nice to be able to hit things that are trying to harass Celebi, like a Roar Zapdos or Moltres. Or some other Pokemon who can be hit with super effective rock coverage. Hidden Power Fighting is also an option for Celebi, because sometimes Tyranitar wants to come in on Celebi, and with a +2 boost, you're doing a lot of damage with HP Fighting into Tyranitar. Though I would say that Celebi is not a great user of Swords Dance itself, like keeping the boost for itself, because it doesn't really have the strongest physical coverage. Ancient Power is really like the only non-hidden power physical move that Celebi gets that is like kind of worth using. I'm sure it's got some other options like Return, which is not uncommon to see on a Swords Dance Celebi, but like you're not getting Stab. It's not the best coverage. It's just better to pass that boost on to something else. And you know, something like an Agility Metagross +2 Metagross is insane. That's very difficult to handle. So yeah, I recommend you try this team out if you're interested in the Swords Dance Pass idea. It's not really my cup of tea. I much prefer other sort of Celebi sets, but I mean, like, this exists for a reason, and I hope that you all try to make it work for yourselves. Agility Pass. So Agility boosts the user's speed by 2 stages, so that's doubling on the first use. There are a lot of powerful breakers and boosters that would easily sweep if they were given a 2x speed boost. So, like, take for example the fighting types, like your Medicham, your Heracross, your Hariyama, Machamp, things like that. Marowak, Tyranitar, not so much Salamence, it's already fast enough and it's got its own speed boosting move. Metagross, Suicune, so on and so forth. Some of these Pokemon do get agility. I think Metagross is the one that comes to mind. I don't know if any of the fighting types do. Maybe Medicham? Probably not, though. Marowak, I'm pretty sure, does not. Tyranitar does not. It gets Dragon Dance instead, though. Suicune, I'm pretty sure, also does not get agility. But regardless of whether they do or they don't, Zapdos is going to be the Pokemon that you tend to want to use with agility in conjunction with Baton Pass. And that's because it's able to threaten a lot of Mons with Stab Thunderbolt, which is going to force them to switch out. So say, for example, Milotic is in, and you go to Zapdos on a Surf. Milotic does not tend to want to stay in and take a Thunderbolt from the Zapdos, so it's going to switch. On that switch, you go for agility, and now you're faster than basically anything that could possibly switch in. So now you get to Baton Pass to whatever you want, and if that thing is something that beats whatever the switch into Zapdos was, then congratulations, you are in the driver's seat. You're probably going to win that game. Though Zapdos has plenty of speed to make use of the boost for itself, so that means that you don't have to run a max speed Zapdos necessarily to get a good agility pass or agility use into Zapdos. And then you have plenty of bulk to get the pass off. Zapdos is going to live most hits in the tier. I'm sure that there are some like choice banded hits that are going to be really, really dangerous for Zapdos to take, but for the most part, Zapdos is going to live a hit. So you can get the agility off against something that is even just threatening to stay in on Zapdos, and then you can pass that out. So you have some other options. Jolteon, Scizor, and Swellow come to mind. They're not, I wouldn't say that most of these are really, really good at doing that. Swellow is a little bit suspect, but I mean, you can definitely make them work, and Baton Pass is one of those moves that gives you a lot of freedom on the team builder to use some strange picks. So that's what's kind of nice about Baton Pass in this tier. We'll maybe talk a little bit more about that later, though. I don't have an example for an Agility Pass Zapdos team. There are plenty of them. I'm sure you can find one just Googling it. But let's get into the third layer here. So Curse Pass, and this is not the Ghost type curse. We're going to be talking about the curse that every other Pokemon uses. So when it's not used by a Ghost type, Curse is going to give a +1 to both attack and defense, but a -1 to speed. So it's kind of like Bulk Up, but with the caveat that you're taking a -1 speed. So passing a speed debuff, I use an speed debuff, that's kind of a typo there, but if you weren't watching the screen, I probably could have got away with that. But now I'm bringing my integrity into question because I didn't proofread as well as I should have before this. We're going to move on, though. You pass that speed debuff, that's usually not good. Most Pokemon want to have their speed stat preserved because speed is a very, very important stat in this game, especially when you're the recipient of like an attack boost. But the item White Herb will nullify all stat debuffs one-time use. As such, a Pokemon that gets past a curse can ignore the stat debuffs at the cost of their item, so long as they're holding the White Herb. So the evolutions are probably the best at performing this. Umbreon can take a couple of hits before passing because it's got a lot of bulk. It also has access to Wish, so it can sort of heal itself. And then Jolteon can use this as well, and because it's so fast, it can still outspeed some foes at -1. I don't know if it's necessarily the most consistent at performing this. I think most of the time that this is ever used, it's usually Umbreon performing it, but Jolteon can do it as well, and I'm about to show you guys a replay, actually, where Jolteon does this. So I've got some presenter's notes on the screen right here. I know that's bad form, but also, you know, I'm not getting paid to do this, so we're just gonna ignore that I have some bad form going on here. So this is me on the right versus Seen in the Stars, who's got 1590 elo, pretty respectable. This is a replay that was in my Wheezing video, so if you watched that, you'll probably already know where this is going, but for those who have not, we're gonna move on here. So Jolteon versus my lead Zapdos. I can't really do that much to Jolteon. I just go for a hidden power to get some chip on it. It's really, really bulky. In fact, if it set a substitute, it would be able to live that most of the time. So this thing is cursing all the way up. It's at -2 speed and toxic, but that's okay because it can Baton Pass. And I wanted to note there, this is a -2 speed Jolteon, and it was faster than my Wheezing. So that's not... It's not to be trifled with there. Now, granted, Weezing's not a very fast Pokemon, but you could imagine something like a Swampert or maybe a Tyranitar coming in, and neither of those Pokemon is going to be faster than Jolteon. I guess unless the Tyranitar has some pretty significant speed investment. The Metacham comes in, and it uses the White Herb to get rid of those speed debuffs. Now, unfortunately for my opponent, my Weezing has Haze, so this Metacham blew its item and its boosts basically for nothing, as my Weezing is now just going to attempt to Will-O-Wisp. It doesn't really get much out of that. I go for Sludge Bomb, break that substitute, and yeah, this Metacham's kind of thudding into the Weezing. My opponent will go back to Jolteon, I presume to try to set up the boost again. This time I go to Claydol to tank the Thunder Wave. And it goes straight to Aerodactyl here, who takes that Earthquake like a champ, of course. And it's going to curse itself and then use the white herb that it has to mitigate that stat boost. Now, the rest of this game is not that consequential. I managed to eliminate the Aerodactyl. Suicune is setting up, forces that Lax to boom. This Metagross is going to boom into Jirachi, and then it's going to be a pretty simple game from there. If you want to see more of me using this team, you can watch my Weezing video. But that's not really what we're here to focus on. We're here to focus on that really interesting application of Curse plus Baton Pass plus White Herb. And I think that this is really cool because it shows that you don't necessarily need the Pokemon that is passing the stats to have it all together. You can pass to something that will take those boosts and do something else with it. So, yeah, those tend to be the more successful Baton Pass teams in my estimation. So we're gonna move on. Salac Pass. So Salac Berry is an item that boosts the holder's speed by 1 stage when at 25% health or lower. Traditionally, a Pokemon that uses an item like the Salac Berry, Lychee Berry, or Pitaya Berry are kind of similar. They just boost attack and special attack, respectively. They use it in conjunction with Substitute to controllably bring their health down to 25%. So, for example, take like Aerodactyl, right? Aerodactyl's really fast. It's probably going to be able to get a Substitute before anything can attack it in a turn. So Aerodactyl can use 3 substitutes, bring itself down to 25% HP, and then the Salac Berry would proc. Now, in the case of Aerodactyl, usually you're using Lychee Berry, but the same concept applies for Salac. So some Pokemon can exploit some common lead matchups to get the boost without using Substitute. So the main leads that would do something like this are Vaporeon and Medicham, thanks to the moderate bulk that they possess and the matchups that they have into common leads. So, for example, Vaporeon is going to take super effective damage from Zapdos, but because it has really high HP, it will usually live that Thunderbolt, and with a sliver of HP, which means that it can just get that Salac boost on turn 1. Now it's faster than Zapdos, and it can pass that boost to whatever it wants. Medicham is kind of similar, like it can live something like a Hydro Pump from a lead Suicune. I think it can similarly live a Thunderbolt from Zapdos. It can live, say, like an Earthquake from Tyranitar, although Tyranitar going for Earthquake is a very strange idea. So, yeah. Now, we have a cool replay from a gamer from Gymcord, so thank you for Gymcord and that gamer for being helpful here. And we're just going to do this. So this is the gamer who sent me this replay, I presume is the person on the right, whereas Wailord lead user is going to, unsurprisingly, lead Wailord. Wailord is a very bad matchup for Vaporeon, who is going to substitute. It's getting Giga Drained here, breaks its substitute, and it's going to substitute itself down. Now, I know I mentioned that Vaporeon does not need to use substitute versus certain lead matchups in order to get this Salac boost, but in any case, it can still use substitute to help itself out in cases where you have a lead matchup versus something like Wailord, where you're not going to get put down to 25% by anything that Wailord is clicking. So now this Vaporeon is going to pass the substitute and the speed boost to Heracross, as this Celebi unfortunately goes for Giga Drain, does not break the substitute for the Heracross, and now Heracross is getting to +4 or 3 times attack. It's going to substitute against this Fortress, who booms, and yeah, as you could probably guess, this Heracross is about to go stupid. Megahorn is going to kill that Tyranitar. Celebi is going to come in and the Heracross is going to go for a hidden power, which might be Ghost, it might be Bug. Nevertheless, the Wailord lead user is going to forfeit before the Wailord even gets to do anything. That's very unfortunate. But yeah, that was a very, very quick game. And I think a perfect example of what a Salak lead Pokemon can do for you. So let's get back to the presentation here. So, Ninjask. This is where a lot of you probably are conceptualizing Baton Pass in this tier. For most of you, Ninjask is the first Pokemon that comes to mind when Speed Pass gets brought up, thanks to its ability Speed Boost, which will give it a +1 speed stage at the end of every turn. So that means that Ninjask, who's already incredibly fast, is just going to get even faster as every turn goes by. With its tremendous base speed, it's already the fastest Pokemon in the format, so it can comfortably set Substitute on most opponents. The exceptions would be if something had already boosted, but even, say, like an Agility Metagross is usually not running enough speed to catch Ninjask. Now, Ninjask needs a little bit of investment, of course, but you are kind of incentivized to go for speed investment on Ninjask because its defenses are piss poor and not really that worth investing in. It's worth investing in a little bit, I think, but not any significant amount. So Ninjask can cycle Protect and Substitute until it's satisfied with its speed stages and then pass it to an abuser. So think about a slower Pokemon, or usually a bulkier Pokemon, who is threatening to just sweep the game. So something like Marowak, Metagross, Suicune are pretty good examples. Doesn't even necessarily need to be as slow as like Marowak, for example. Suicune is a decently fast Pokemon on its own, but it tends to want to invest in defense because it's got phenomenal defenses and its speed is just okay. Something like Heracross, who has the same speed stat as Suicune, but is a little bit more incentivized to run some speed investment, is also a Pokemon that could receive these speed boosts. You could even give it to something like Salamence, who is quite a bit faster, but it's not faster than something like Aerodactyl. So, yeah. Or even like Raikou, for example, if you want to do like a modest Raikou and you want it to outspeed Dugtrio if that ever comes in. So that could be an option as well. So, yeah, there's Ninjask saying it's too easy for him. The funny guy. We'll talk about some counterplay to Ninjask. So the main form of counterplay is Phazing, and that's why we talked about Phazing earlier. Roar and Whirlwind are moves that will force the Ninjask to switch out, or it'll force the Pokemon that Ninjask passes to switch out, and it resets their stat boosts and gets rid of a substitute if that's involved. I want to note that Roar and Whirlwind will both hit a Pokemon that has a substitute in front of it, not just Roar. And yeah, there you go. Other forms of counterplay might include Perish Song, Psych Up, or something that just hits whatever is passed to ridiculously hard. So Perish Song, of course, that's going to stick with Ninjask or whatever gets switched into as the Baton Pass happens. Psych Up will activate through Substitute. So you could, say, have a Pokemon that is gearing up to Psych Up in front of the Ninjask. Predict the turn that Ninjask is going to Baton Pass out. Usually it Baton Passes to something that is on the slower side. So you can Psych Up, and with those boosts matched, you might outspeed whatever is in front of you, and then maybe counter sweep. So that's a possibility there. I have not personally seen that done before, but I think it would be really cool if somebody tried that. And if you try this, send me the replay. I want to see it. And then, of course, just smashing whatever is getting past you is just good. Like, you have, say, a Suicune spamming Surf into the Ninjask, and Ninjask Baton passes to Marowak. Well, Marowak's taking a Surf, and you've been removing the substitute as Ninjask has been setting it up, so there's no fear of giving that substitute to the Marowak that's switching in. So take, for example, Skarmory, who's one of the best phasers in the tier. It roars or whirlwinds the Ninjask, and Ninjask is going to have to switch out. And that's really good. So Skarmory did a great job there. But there's some problems to this, which is going to set up our next slide. So, Ninjask teams will have a rebuttal to phasing. Because phasing is the most common form of counterplay to Ninjask, there are some ways that Ninjask teams can play around phasing. So, the first one is to remove the phasers and then let Ninjask set up the pass. So, the example from the previous slide that I'm reusing here would be Magneton trapping a Skarmory. Magneton is extremely common on these Ninjask teams because Skarmory is the most consistent phaser, 2, the most commonly used phaser, and 3, spikes are kind of annoying for these speed pass teams because you're going to be doing a lot of switching and you don't want your Pokemon like Marowak to be taking a bunch of spikes chip every time it comes in if you have to try to set the boost again. So yeah, Magneton, very, very useful. There are other phasers, of course, like Tyranitar or Suicune, and you're going to have to find some other ways to eliminate those, but there are certainly ways to do that. You know, for example, Explosion is a really nice move. You'll see sometimes a Choice Band Metagross on these types of teams. 1, because it makes good use of that speed boost from the Ninjask, and 2, because Boom is just going to eliminate most things. So, if you eliminate a phaser with that, then you're one step closer to Ninjask passing that speed boost and winning the game. Number 2, you could toxic or attack the phaser with Ninjask. So an example here is, say, a Tyranitar is coming in and it's trying to roar the Ninjask away. Well, Ninjask has super effective stab in Silver Wind or HP Bug that it can hit the Tyranitar with, which is going to limit the amount of times that Tyranitar can try to do this in the future, especially if it's not running a leftovers, although I would say most variants of Roar Tyranitar are running leftovers. You can even go a little harder if you're wanting specifically to hit Tyranitar with HP Fighting. That will do a lot more damage to the Tyranitar, possibly even KO it, depending on what the situation is in the game. But yeah, and then Toxic is just really annoying for a lot of these phasers, especially ones who either have to use Rest to get rid of Toxic or have no means of removing status. I don't think any of the Natural Cure Pokemon get Roar, at least not the ones ranked in OU. So they're not very useful for that. And then Refresh is not super duper commonly paired with Roar. You could use it on something like Swampert, but Refresh Swampert really wants to have other moves like Toxic or Protect. So yeah, it's not super duper common that you have great counterplay for that. Now there's some risk involved in this, of course. Every turn that you're going for Toxic, if you're not behind a substitute, is a turn that the Pokemon could attack you. So say like a Roar Tyranitar could go for Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Rock Slide, any number of moves that would deal significant damage to Ninjask, possibly even just kill it outright. And Ninjask is not really worth, it's not really wanting to trade its entire life to get a Toxic on something. So, yeah, there's some risk associated there. But 3 is Sand Attack. That evil pest Ninjask and its Sand Attack. I put out some polls on my channel that had to do with some questions relating to Baton Pass, which helped to inform me what to focus on here. And in the comments, a lot of you were mentioning Sand Attack Ninjask, or like some form of accuracy reducing move. And I think I would be remiss to not talk a little bit about it here, even though it's technically not related to Baton Pass, or at least not directly. So this next slide here is going to be a diatribe on accuracy reducing moves. So, what are the use cases for accuracy reducing moves? I can think of 3. So the first one is to force switches. And well, the third one is going to be very related to the first one, but it's going to be kind of like a special case of forcing switches. So the first one, forcing switches. This could be really nice in conjunction with spikes, for example, because spikes are going to punish switches, and using moves like sand attack that reduce the foe's accuracy is going to encourage them to want to switch out, because no Pokemon wants to have reduced accuracy, not be able to hit whatever's in front of it, and then allow whatever's in front of it to do any nasty stuff. Like, say, for example, Umbreon using sand attack on whatever's in front of it. Now that thing cannot hit Umbreon. Umbreon's got really good bulk, so it's probably living a hit anyway if a hit manages to get through. And now Umbreon is going to use Wish, and it's going to pass that to something that has been hurt throughout this game. Now you have to switch, but if you switch, you're just allowing a free turn for that Wish to get passed. And if there's spikes on the field, then you're just taking extra spikes damage, and it's overall not a good day for you. So that is maybe an honest use of accuracy reducing, if we're even going to consider accuracy reducing to be honest at all. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I will say I'm kind of on the side that there is no honest use, but like I've heard the arguments and I can see. The second one I do think is potentially an idea, and it's to deal with last mon boosters. So take, for example, Suicune, who's one of the most notoriously difficult last mon to deal with. A lot of people, their main way of dealing with Suicune is phasing it, but when there's only one Pokemon on your opponent's team left, you can't phase that Pokemon because there's nothing to switch it out to. So that move will fail if you try to use it, your Roar or your Whirlwind. That means that Suicune can try to boost using Calm Mind. So it'll get to however high it wants to get to. Your special attackers are not going to be able to beat Suicune without like a crit super effective move, because it's going to be at really, really high Spadef. And then Suicune is going to invest a lot in its defenses so that physical attackers will struggle to beat it. Now, there are some concepts to beat this. So say, for example, you have an explosion user that would one-shot Suicune. That's one way to deal with the last mon Suicune. You could have a booster who's going to exploit the rest turns that Suicune has taken. So say a Dragon Dance Salamence or something like that, who can switch in as Suicune goes for rest, get a Dragon Dance off. Now it's +1 HP flying, is going to be doing upwards of 40%. It's going to force Suicune into a rest loop, or it's going to get a crit and kill the Suicune, or Suicune is going to be forced to kill the Salamence at really low HP, in which case your next physical attacker can come in and finish it off. So that's an idea there. Another option is debuffing the Suicune's defense stat. This is something that you'll see on V5 sometimes with Dugtrio. If you've ever seen Kurtz's version of V5, which has Screech as the fourth move on Dugtrio, and you're thinking, why would you use Screech on a banded Dugtrio? Well, the idea is for Suicune. Last mon Suicune can be kind of difficult to deal with for that team unless you have Explosion on Claydol remaining. So one way that it can manage to do this is Seismic Toss with Blissey, to the point that Suicune has to use Rest. Then you switch Dugtrio in. It goes for Screech to debuff Suicune's defense. Suicune can't do anything about that because it's the last mon. It can't switch out to reset that debuff. Then you switch back to Blissey, Seismic Toss the Suicune back down to the point where it's forced to rest again. And then Dugtrio can come in and comfortably 3-hit KO the -2 Bliss or Suicune. So accuracy reducing moves can kind of act as a proxy for that. The idea being that while Suicune is asleep, you go for Sand Attack, to make sure that the Suicune is having a really, really tough time hitting the rest of your Pokemon with Surf. Then you can kind of PP stall the Suicune, especially if you have a Pokemon with Substitute, who is going to dodge most of the moves that Suicune goes for when it's at really low accuracy. And if a Surf manages to get through, well, it's only going to be breaking the Substitute, so not so bad. And then that is a way you could deal with a Last Mon Suicune. I think it is a pretty risky way to do it, and it's not a super duper common thing that I've seen, but in theory it is an option, and I think that's probably the most honest use case for accuracy reducing moves. If that was the only thing that it was used for, I don't think I'd have much of an issue with it, to be honest. I mean, if you go down to a Last Mon, like, you have to be prepared for any sort of cheese to ruin your strategy. So, yeah. But the third use case for accuracy reducing moves, which I think is the one that people are most frustrated by, is to enable baton passing. It's a form of anti-phasing, which we'll talk about in the not too distant future, because the phasing moves in this generation, for some reason, do not bypass accuracy check like they do in later generations. So Roar, it's a 100% accuracy move, which means that when you put accuracy debuffs on the Pokemon that's using Roar, that Pokemon will be subject to lower accuracy. So the first one is going to put you at 75% accuracy. So what Ninjask can do is when and broadly speaking, any Pokemon with an accuracy reducing move like Flash or Sand Attack. Sand Attack is the best one because it's 100 accuracy itself. You can go for the Sand Attack, and then the Pokemon that is in front of you might just miss Roar. There's a 1 in 4 chance. And then Ninjask can say, okay, I could go for another Sand Attack to put you at 67% accuracy, and then 1/3 of the time that Pokemon might miss its Roar again. And then you could keep stacking there, or you can at some point try to baton pass your speed boosts to an abuser like Marowak or Hariyama or something like that. And then that Pokemon that is trying to roar is going to continue to try to roar, and if the luck kind of just goes in your favor, that Pokemon will miss all of its roars, and then you can successfully beat it with the abuser. So that is one thing that you could do, and it is really annoying. Sometimes you're forced to switch, but if you're switching, that's giving Ninjask a free move. And if Ninjask does something like set up a substitute or baton pass its speed boosts, you could be in really, really big trouble. So it's not a very consistent strategy for Ninjask, to be honest. The idea is like not that you're going to just get the 1 in 4 right away. It's that you're going to force this scenario a couple times in a game, and eventually you'll get the luck to go your way, which is really, really annoying because there's not very much counterplay to it. One form of counterplay to it is the ability Keen Eye, which Skarmory has, and Skarmory's great because it's got Roar. It's almost always going to use Roar, and it's really good at doing it. But like I said, a lot of Ninjask teams are going to be packing Magneton. And Sand Attack Ninjask teams especially are going to be packing Magneton because Skarmory's one of the few phasers who can actually deal with Sand Attack Ninjask. You also have the ability Clear Body, which is just a buffed version of Keen Eye in a sense because it stops all of your stats from getting debuffed by your opponent. But I don't think very many Clear Body users have Roar in their moveset. Metagross does not, the Regis don't, and I can't even tell you who the next best Clear Body user is, if there even is one. So that's not really a form of counterplay. So yeah, it's really, really annoying, and I do understand why that is annoying, and I do understand like that some people will just use cheesy Sand Attack, even when it's not on Ninjask, on just any Pokemon that gets it, for the sake of just making it really, really hard for you to play the game. There are some other accuracy reducing moves like Mud Slap, for example, or Muddy Water, Kinesis, things like that. Some of these are pretty rare, but yeah, there's not very much counterplay to it. So, why has there not been any Smogon action on on the accuracy reducing moves? Well, I mean, my personal honest answer is I don't know, because like to me it seems like a slam dunk. Like we already banned evasion boosting moves, and I know that evasion boosting is a little bit harder to deal with than accuracy reducing, because you are not as in control of your opponent's stat boosts as you are your own debuffs, because you can always just switch. But like, are you really that in control when like switching or giving a free turn to your opponent is so easy to abuse? Yeah, I don't really think so. There are some tiers that have, or some metagames I should say, that have clauses on accuracy reducing moves. For example, Gen 3 1v1 bans the use of accuracy reducing moves. So it's not like it's never been implemented. But I think if I'm going to play devil's advocate on the side of the council or the tiering policy or whoever it is that's responsible for not having action on this, it would add some complexity to the rule set. So the idea is that we want to preserve the metagame with as few rules as possible so that it's easier for new players to get into the metagame. You know, if, say, we had a rule set where it was like, okay, you can play ADV OU, your 6v6 singles, but you're not allowed to use Dragon Dance on any Pokemon that has a base stat in attack more than 130. Then it's like, okay, well, I can't use Dragon Dance on Tyranitar or Salamence. So, okay, so I'm going to have to think a little bit outside the box for these Pokemon in particular, but it is okay to use Dragon Dance on something like Crawdaunt. I actually don't know if Crawdaunt gets Dragon Dance in this generation. Or we'll say, or you can't use it on Dragonite either. You know, there's a lot of hemming and hawing. Now, I don't think that like banning accuracy reducing moves is going to be nearly as like strange a concept as doing something like that. I honestly think that most people would probably just be okay with that, and even if they don't prefer that there is action on it, they will understand it, like that, like what the restriction is, and not be dissuaded from trying to learn the tier because of a rule like that, I would think. So, like, personally, if it was up to me, there would be action on accuracy reducing moves, because I do think they're just not that competitive. The one use case for them, like punishing a last mon, is not, in my mind, worth keeping it around for, because there's just so much cheese that it can do. And I'm not so... I understand that there's bias in that, right? And that me saying this is going to probably sway the people who are listening to this, but I'm not so concerned with that, because I think it is a fairly popular opinion that accuracy reducing moves are not super duper great. Now, those of you who do like accuracy reducing moves, I mean, I'm willing to hear you out on it. I know there's a player that is pretty respectable who has a lot of elo, who is like really against like adding more rules to the tier, who I know watches my channels because I see their replies, and like I hear you. I'm not saying your name out of like trying not to get people to harass you, which, no, don't harass people just because they disagree with what you think should be the case for the game. And yeah, you know, I respect your opinion, and I know that you're a good player. But on this one, I think I just disagree. And then, would banning accuracy reducing moves fix the issues with stat passing? So this is a sentiment that has been paraded in my comment sections, especially on those polls. It's like people are saying, well, speed pass wouldn't even be that big an issue if you just banned sand attack on Ninjask or banned Ninjask or something like that. And you know, I can sort of get where you're coming from with that take, but I think that take is a little bit underbaked. I think there are some other factors, particularly with stat passing and more specifically with speed passing, that make it hard to deal with other than just accuracy reducing moves. People don't like accuracy reducing moves in conjunction with speed pass because speed pass is so powerful if it manages to get off correctly, and accuracy reducing moves just turn it into kind of a slot machine where if you get the right luck, like say like a 1 in 16 chance that you dodge the first roar and then dodge the second roar as you pass to something else, and then like essentially you probably just win the game from there. And I know a 1 in 16 is not a great chance, but like if there was a move that existed in this game and it was a 1 in 16 chance that you click that button and you just win, like right there, it just gives you the win, like we would probably ban that, right? And I'm not saying that that's exactly what stat pass plus sand attack is, but it's a little bit closer to that than it is to like more traditional strategies. But there's some other sort of strategies that get mixed in with your stat passing that can force some kind of luck-based scenarios in a sense. And we'll be talking about that. So if you're somebody who's like, let's ban sand attack and that fixes the issue, stick around and maybe you'll hear about some more things that you may not have considered before. So we're getting into layer 4. This is probably where a lot of you may not have seen some of these things. Maybe like Smeargle DD Pass, that probably is, you would think that's self-explanatory, but maybe you don't understand the intricacies. But like anti-phasing and the 6 restrictions, maybe you've not heard of that before. So let's start with the 6 restrictions. So there are 6 restrictions / clauses in ADV's rule set that limit Baton Pass strategies. Number 1, you cannot have the conjunction of Smeargle and Ingrain. So Smeargle, yes, it can learn the move Ingrain via its signature move Sketch, which Zetz says is the best move in the game, and I guess I tend to agree with him, because if you think that there's a move better than that, then Sketch can give you that move. So, yeah. A little asterisk here. Smeargle is the only Pokemon that has access to both Ingrain and Baton Pass, so that's why there's specifically a clause that stops Smeargle from being able to use Ingrain. There are, you know, plenty of other Pokemon that get Ingrain, but they don't have the move Baton Pass, so it's not really that big a deal for them. The reason why Ingrain is a big deal, we'll talk about more in a moment, but just know that that's banned. The next 3 are Baton Pass plus Block, Mean Look, and Spiderweb. Block, Mean Look, and Spiderweb, for all intents and purposes, are the same move. They do the same thing, where they stop the opponent from being able to switch. So they're called trapping moves, essentially. The reason why this is not a good thing is that when you use Baton Pass after you've used the move Block persists for the opponent. So it cuts both ways, right? If they use Block on you and you Baton Pass, then the Pokemon that you Baton Pass to can't switch because it's blocked. But if you use Block and then Baton Pass, then that Pokemon still can't switch, and you switch to something presumably that is going to beat whatever is in front of it. Soundproof as an ability is banned. Which maybe, especially if you're coming from a modern generation, that sounds kind of crazy. It's like, why is soundproof banned? That's not even like that good of an ability, even in modern gens. And I would agree, but kind of makes sense in the context of this. And then the 6 is 1 boost passer clause. So now we'll talk a little bit more about the context of each of these. So Soundproof and Ingrain are strategies that seek to limit phasing counterplay. So the idea with Smeargle plus Ingrain is that you use Ingrain. The effect is that you essentially get like leftovers healing at the end of the turn, which is kind of nice, but it also locks you. Like you can't be roared out. And I also think that you're not able to switch your Pokemon if you use Ingrain. Somebody check me on that because I'm not sure about Ingrain in ADV. I've only ever seen it in like the in-game when the like AI uses it. So like I'm not that familiar with how switching is integrated with that, but I think it's true that if you use Ingrain, you're not able to switch that Pokemon by normal means. But you can Baton Pass that, and it keeps that Ingrain status, which means that you can go to something that is really consistent at boosting, and that the best form of counterplay to it is to roar it out, like say Suicune, and you just will not be able to roar that Suicune out anymore. And then Suicune's also getting that extra healing from Ingrain on top of its leftovers. It's out healing like Sandstorm Chip, and like it's going to be really, really difficult to beat that Suicune. Not impossible. You could explode. You could just have a really, really strong electric type attacker. You could have something that is forcing it to sleep and then boosting in its face. But all like it's not super duper common that you're going to have all of those. Explosion's probably going to be the most consistent because the Suicune can't switch out and you're just going to boom, and it can't really do anything about that. But like that's basically a strategy that is forcing a one for one trade, and it's like, well, do we want to have strategies that like basically force you to have to sacrifice a Pokemon to beat it? There's some different philosophy there. I'll let you guys decide if that's something. But Soundproof similarly is something that is limiting phasing counterplay. So the move Roar is considered a sound-based move, which means that any Pokemon that has the ability Soundproof will negate the effect of Roar. So, say for example, Mr. Mime, who has Soundproof, switches in or receives a Baton Pass boost, more specifically. Then you try to roar the Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime is going to block that. You can't roar it out, and then it's getting Calm Mind boosts. And then it's essentially gonna just take those Calm Mind boost and the speed boost or whatever else it got from the Baton Pass and sweep your team. Now, is Mr. Mime like the most difficult Pokemon to deal with? Not really. Its defenses are like mediocre. Psychic is not a fantastic defensive type. You can break through the Mr. Mime, but if the Mr. Mime like gets all those speed boosts and then it's set up in a position where like +1 Psychic is going to basically destroy your team, then there's not really much great that you can do about it. And you can't roar. Now you can whirlwind it, and this is an option, but the two most common whirlwinders are Skarmory and Hariyama. The issue with Skarmory, well, for one, you're not able to run Drill Peck in conjunction with Whirlwind, so you're limited on what Skarm sets you're allowed to use. That's not the worst thing in the world, because Skarmory doesn't really need Drill Peck to be effective as a Pokemon. It is unfortunate that it limits you, but it's not the worst thing. The issue with Skarmory, though, is that it's so easily trapped by Magneton and removed, so you could just... The same concept as with any sort of like Ninjask pass team. You just use Magneton to eliminate the Skarmory, and then you pass the boost to Mr. Mime. The other Pokemon that is commonly used in this case with Whirlwind, Hariyama, is, well, obviously it's extremely weak to Mr. Mime. Psychic is going to just blow it up. Now, in the past, there was actually a straight-up ban to Mr. Mime in this tier, which is kind of insane because it's a low tier Pokemon. I think it was still able to be used in UU, for example, but it was banned in OU specifically, which is kind of crazy. Now we just banned Soundproof, so unfortunately Xbloud kind of got the collateral damage here, but Xbloud in theory could also make use of this sort of pass to a Pokemon that essentially can't be phased. So yeah, that's something. There are some other abilities that stop phasing, like Suction Cups, which Pokemon like Traydilly and Octillery have. I don't know why they decided not to ban those, because I would think that's even stronger than Soundproof, because that also blocks Whirlwind, but for whatever reason, Suction Cups is allowed. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Block, Mean Look, and Spiderweb because I already explained it, but these three restrictions are practically the same. Like, you don't really have to consider them as three separate things, because, like, yeah, they're basically the same. And it's most of this is to stop Smeargle from being able to do it. Now, there are some Pokemon that get Block plus Baton Pass or Mean Look plus Baton Pass. There's literally one Pokemon that gets Spiderweb plus Baton Pass that is not named Smeargle, and that Pokemon's name is Ariados. And, like, honestly, who cares? Ariados is not very good, and if you manage to fall for that strategy and it beats you, then, like, I don't really have that much sympathy for you. So, yeah. Again, all of these are mostly to limit Smeargle. Kind of interesting. And then the one boost passer clause. So what this clause does is it means that you can only have one source of boosting in conjunction with Baton Pass. So what that means is, say for example, you have a team that has Zapdos and Celebi, right? And Zapdos has Agility plus Baton Pass, and Celebi has Calm Mind plus Baton Pass. Well, that means you're not actually allowed to use that team. You're going to have to pick one of these Pokemon to get rid of its boosting move. So either Zapdos has to drop Agility, or Celebi has to drop Calm Mind. It is okay to have multiple Pokemon on your team with Baton Pass, and it is okay for, say, Celebi to click CM, pass to the Zapdos, and then Zapdos to pass that CM boost to something else. It is okay for a Pokemon like Celebi to pass a CM boost to Zapdos, and Zapdos to use the move Agility, as long as it does not have Baton Pass. All of that's okay. You're just not allowed to have multiple Pokemon on a team that can pass the boosts. Another thing you're not allowed to do is pass from like two different sources on yourself. So for example, Ninjask has the ability Speed Boost, right? We just talked about that. It also gets the move Swords Dance. In theory, it would be really nice if you could Swords Dance with the Ninjask, get a bunch of speed boosts, and then pass that to something like a Metagross, so that you have a really strong, really fast Metagross. You're not allowed to do that either. Because Speed Boost and Swords Dance are considered two different sources, it would violate the one boost passer clause. Now, moves that give you multiple boosts, like, say, Dragon Dance, that's considered one source, so you can Dragon Dance as many times as you want and then pass all of that. But you're just not allowed to have it from two different sources. So, no Swords Dance plus Iron Defense plus Agility, Baton Pass from a Scizor, or anything like that. Now, I want to make a note that other generations that have limitations to Baton Pass actually have even more restrictions. So, take something like Gen 4. It has the Baton Pass Stat Trap clause, which is it really rolls off the tongue. It is technically a grand clause that bans the use of several boosting moves, like all of your agilities and your nasty plots and your calm minds and all of that, and items that would boost your stats, like your Salac Berry, your Lychee Berry, things like that, in conjunction with Baton Pass. But it also bans things like Ingrain plus Baton Pass, partial trapping moves like Fire Spin, Whirlpool, Sand Tomb plus Baton Pass, Mean Look plus Baton Pass, block, spiderweb, like all those moves still exist in Gen 4. And you're like literally all of these things plus Baton Pass are banned. It's just put in one clause. So like if you want to argue about how many restrictions there are, like Gen 4 like technically has like 30 something restrictions. It's just that it's all consolidated into one thing. Now, the reason why I bring these 6 restrictions up is in part so that I can explain to you who may not be familiar with how Baton Pass is adjudicated in this tier, like what the limitations are, but also because there's been a lot of reaction to this, particularly from people who are not that big in the ADV scene. Maybe they play other formats. Maybe they don't play Pokemon like competitively at all, and they're kind of just making comments here. And we're gonna read some of those. But first, actually, I want to talk about a little strange quirk of the historical clauses because I don't remember the order of my slides. So prior to the one stat passer clause, there was something called the ABR clause, which limited you to 3 baton passers on a team. Or sorry, 3 Pokemon that used the move Baton Pass to pass stats on a team. So you had like smaller chains. I think even before that, it was just unrestricted. You could Baton Pass whatever the hell you wanted. And during this time, Smeargle specifically was banned from using the move Baton Pass. When the one stat passer clause was instated in favor of the ABR clause, Smeargle plus BP was not banned anymore. It was kind of lifted. This was not something that was voted upon by the people who got the suspect Rex and made the voting to instate the one stat passer clause. It was something that the council kind of just threw in there. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they thought that Smeargle wouldn't be so crazy with Baton Pass if like the crazy chains that Smeargle was a part of were not in effect anymore. Nowadays, I think we see that Smeargle is maybe just problematic with the move Baton Pass overall. Some people would disagree with that though, and I think that their takes are valid, at least in the sense that we should hear them out and hear their logic, because they have some, defensible takes, I'll say. Again, I'll let my biases known. I do think that Smeargle plus Baton Pass is a little bit over centralizing in the Baton Pass metagame. Also a little bit broken because of some of the things that Smeargle can do. But, like, again, acknowledge that that's my bias, and I came to that opinion based on my experiences. You can certainly come to a different opinion, and you can certainly use different logic to justify yourself, and that's perfectly fine. So, yeah, there's Smeargle kissing the ground that Smogon floats over. But let's get into these reactions. I've chosen not to attribute these because, again, I don't think that you should be finding these people and getting into arguments online. It's not really worth your time. There are plenty of other things that you can be doing with your life. Also, why risk getting banned off of Smogon for saying things that are maybe not very nice? So let's read this one first. 6 limitations. 6 bloody limitations, and it isn't enough. I understand that older generations in metagames get a degree of leniency in regards to complex bans and the like, but I'm sorry, this is taking the piss. This is obviously a British. I'm not gonna make fun of the British. My mom's British, so yeah, keep your British hate curbed in the comment section. All right. My mom is British, and she's a lovely woman, and I will not tolerate hate on my mom and her people. No, I'm kidding. You can say whatever the hell you want. Just don't be racist, all right? I think it's worth asking ourselves how many restrictions is too many. because everything about ADV OU Baton Pass is a crystal clear example of why we don't do complex bans to preserve stuff that just isn't worth saving. Now, I will say, they don't really make an argument here about why Baton Pass and ADV is not worth saving, but alright. I don't intend to argue that what metagame benefits might be preserved by keeping Dry Pass, and honestly, I don't think it matters. I don't know why it doesn't matter, but okay. If something like Doug Trio becomes unreasonable as a result of banning Baton Pass, well, you go for banning Doug Trio. This wild goose chase of trying to limit it as much as possible before people find a new and creative way of breaking Baton Pass has gone on way too long. From Mr. Mime to Sand Attack to chain passing to speed passing entirely over the course of what, almost a decade? I propose the following. Ban Baton Pass outright or deal with what you have. I understand this isn't going to be a popular stance for people who main ADV, but at the same time this has gone way too far for way too long. Okay, this was one of the first of these kind of takes that was presented in the forum where this was posted, and I'm not gonna lie, it riled up some people. Some of you guys fell for the bait. Well, I don't know if this is bait. I think this is probably a genuine take by this person. I think that, I mean, for one, Gen 3 is not unique in allowing Dry Pass. Gens 2, 3, 4, and 5 allow Baton Pass in some capacity. Now, Gen 4 and 5, it's a little bit more of a newer thing. There were times where Baton Pass was just fully banned from both of those generations. But GSC, or Gen 2, for example, has almost always had Baton Pass legal. And in fact, it's less restricted than it is in Gen 3. So I don't know if this player thinks that... you know, like the same thing about Gens 2, 4, and 5. I will say that, as we discussed in the dry passing, that there are some merits to dry passing, in particular because we don't have access to other pivoting options in this generation. Now, you could say, well, maybe this metagame needs to evolve around not having any pivoting moves, which, okay, I mean, that's something that we could try. But I think that pivoting moves are healthy for a tier. I think that it allows for a lot of different team structures that otherwise would not be as effective. So things like your Jolteon spikes, one of the things that is really nice about teams like this is that when a switch into Jolteon comes in and takes spikes damage, Jolteon can go for Baton Pass to switch to a Pokemon that handles that and forces it to take more spikes damage. Now, your counterplay for this is going to be trying to remove the spikes. Like, I think that's a healthy way to go about this. You could say, well, all right, maybe like it shouldn't be so easy for these Jolt Spikes teams. They should have to work harder for it. And okay, maybe that's an argument that you could make. I would say though that like, why are we making it harder for these offensive spikes teams when, like, you know, you have your balanced spikes teams like your Big Five, for example, who are, they're not relying on Baton Pass to do this either. Maybe you use this as an argument for why you should just get rid of Baton Pass because there's plenty of spikes play in there. But why limit it to that? Like, why does Big Five get to be the only team that has like this healthy, in-depth spikes counterplay going on, or like the interaction between spikes and spike removal, I should say. I think it's cool that Baton Pass is allowing some alternative ways to maintain spikes where you don't necessarily have to have a spin blocker like Gengar, although sometimes you do see spin blockers like Gengar on a team. And yeah, if we kind of accept that U-turn and Volt Switch are not broken in future generations, I mean, some people do think it is, and you know, that's fair, you can have that take. But if you're somebody who is saying, well, U-turn and Volt Switch are not broken, then why would you say that Dry Pass needs to just go on its face? Because Baton Pass is, in essence, like, used for the same reason, or at least dry passing is. So I don't see why there's, like, particular hate for it in Gen 3. So that's sort of my response to this. Now let's look at another one here. Imagine if any metagame was allowed this favor of treatment to get 6 restrictions just in order to get Arceus Bug unbanned to any Gen 4 plus OU. It would be mocked and called ridiculous for complex manning a Pokemon. I can't stand the ADV player base. The grandfathering treatment of Baton Pass is hilarious to me. This should be as simple as ban BP from ADV OU, yes or no. No questions asked. The fact that this is even remotely controversial in the ADV metagame, or any metagame really, is simply ridiculous. You either use the full move, no restrictions, or you don't. This one did not get any traction, honestly, because this is, like, very obvious bait, like, right? Like, for one, like, there's not really an argument made here, right? You're saying complex bans are bad because complex bans are bad, right? It's like circular reasoning. Why? Okay, this is ridiculous. That might be true, but why would it be crazy to allow Arceus Bug in one of these generations if the players really want to play with it, right? Now, I will say that, like, I do agree, like, it would be ridiculous if you said, like, all right, Arceus is not allowed to use Recover so that we can use Arceus Bug, right? Because it's like, well, then why don't you do that for other Pokemon, too? Like, why would you, like, what if, like, Lugia, for example, if it's not allowed to use Multiscale, then is it really that broken in modern generations, right? If it was Pressure Lugia, probably be okay. And if that's not okay, then, like, also it's not allowed to use Calm Mind, then I'm sure that would be fine for OU. Or, like, you know, ban specifically, like, Speed Boost on Blaziken and stuff like that. Because it kind of, it creates this sort of tiering philosophy where we're restricting what a Pokemon can do for the sake of upholding some, like, vacuous metagame, rather than saying, you know, this Pokemon has tools that are just not competitive. So we're going to remove that Pokemon for the sake of keeping the metagame competitive. I think that's a little bit more of a reasonable and attainable goal, so that we don't have to get into, like, basically changing game mechanics or introducing our own balances to the game that Game Freak did not particularly intend. Now, that being said, we do already do stuff like this, like Sleep Claws mod and Freeze Claws mod, and like showing the percentage damage dealt. Like, that's not a thing in most Pokemon games. Yes, like, there's precedent for it in things like Pokemon Stadium, but, like, you know, if you boot up Gen 9 OU right now and you try to play on Battle Spot, it's not going to show you percentage damage dealt. It's not going to show you, or you're not going to be restricted to putting only one Pokemon to sleep at a time. Like, you're not going to be stopped from using things like Double Team. So we already do kind of have some concessions, right? And I think it's a matter of degree. Is this something that is going to improve the competitive, that is going to make more players enjoy playing the game, and is going to increase the sort of skill floor for the game, right? Or the skill gap, I guess you could even say. Because as it stands right now, if I played against a really good player, like, let's say Mielke, right? If I played against Mielke and I was allowed to use Double Team, well, it doesn't really matter how good Mielke plays. Eventually, I'm just going to get lucky and dodge all the hits and then win the game, right? And I could steal a win. It's not that impressive, and it's not really that fun. Like, personally, I wouldn't find that much fun beating a player who's as good as Mielke by using a strategy that is so heavily luck-based. I would much prefer to play an honest well, okay, honest is again a matter of opinion, right? But I'd rather play with a more traditional team and win by the virtue of like my skill. Maybe some luck is involved, but not to an egregious extent, right? And not to like crap on Mielke. I use Mielke because I respect him as a player. He's really, really good, and I know that he has watched at least one of my videos, so maybe he's watching this. I'm not sure. But shout outs to Mielke. And hopefully I'm not pronouncing that incorrectly. But regardless, like, I don't think, like, these restrictions that are on Baton Pass right now, like, they are saving us from some uncompetitiveness in the game. Now, is it saving us from all the uncompetitive things that Baton Pass could do? Arguably not. And that's why we're moving forward with some more discussion on Baton Pass. And perhaps we are maybe going to see some action depending on how the suspect test goes. At the time of me recording this, I don't know what the results of it is going to be. Probably at the time of posting, we don't know what the result is going to be. But we'll have to stay tuned for that. And if the player base decides no, like, banning speed pass is not the way to go about this, then we're gonna live with that, right? We're gonna say we made our decision that speed pass is not broken, it's not uncompetitive, and we're gonna play with what we've got, right? We're just asking a question here with the suspect test. It's not like we're not uprooting the whole metagame at the behest of nobody. Just for the sake of doing it, right? We're asking this question, and if the answer to the question is yes, speed pass is broken, then we're gonna do something about it. So, yeah, I don't really love, like, for one, the idea that these 6 restrictions, wherein really it's like 4 restrictions because 3 of them are the same, is like some bad thing. In fact, I think that sometimes, like, these complex bans can be good. There could be some things like, for example, Jim brings this up a lot, Frostlass in Gen 4. It's a pretty good lead spiker, but because its only ability is Snowcloak, and Snowcloak as an ability as a whole is banned, you're not allowed to use Frostlass. So if you had a complex ban that said you're not allowed to have the combination of Snowcloak and a Snow Setter on your team, or like say Snowboarding, if that's the only thing really, then you might be able to have a slightly more competitive metagame. Gen 5 has some complex bans, I think. For example, I don't think you're allowed to have Sand Rush on Excadrill. I might be wrong about that, but so let me know. But like, Excadrill is a Pokemon that is healthy for that metagame. It gives you a good spinner to use, but it would just be broken if it had +2 speed the entire game as long as Sand was on the field. So, like, they came to a conclusion that there was a complex ban that preserved something that was good, that a lot of players wanted to see stay in the metagame, and I don't see what's wrong with that, right? Some people are, like, purists where they would say, like, we shouldn't be banning anything, and if that's the case, well, then go play Anything Goes. That's a format for you if you want to, like, be in that chaos, or go play Battle Spot singles or something. There are metagames for that if that's what you're looking for. But I think there is a sizable number of people who are trying to find some balance of competition with like low amount of limitation, and that's why we're here, right? And if you don't like it, then you're perfectly fine to express that. But like, can I take your take that seriously if you're admitting you don't play this format, you're not familiar with it? Like, it, maybe play it a little bit and see if that would change your mind, right? All right, we're moving on from this though. All right, so anti-phasing. This is probably the concept that is the most important. So if you're only halfway paying attention and I've found you in a moment of consciousness, first of all, I want to let you know you lost the game. Second of all, I want to let you know that you should pay attention to this in particular. So anti-phasing is referring to strategies that attempt to stop the opponent from phasing your Pokemon, i.e. that stop your opponent from being able to use the moves Roar or Whirlwind. So the examples of this would include Taunt, a faster Roar or Whirlwind, Sleep, the ability Suction Cups, the ability Soundproof, or the move Ingrain. So Soundproof and Ingrain are like kind of banned. I guess technically you could Baton Pass to something like Tangela, and Tangela could use Ingrain, but like, I mean, is that really that big a deal? Ingrain is banned from being Baton Passed from Smeargle, and Soundproof as an ability is banned, so like, focus less on those, focus more on Taunt, Sleep, Suction Cups, and Fast Roar and Whirlwind. So Smeargle is kind of the poster child for anti-phasing mechanics because it has access to literally all of them, well, except for Suction Cups, but it can pass to something that has Suction Cups. It has access to Baton Pass, Taunt, and Spore with stats that usually outspeed or live an opposing hit. Not always. There are certain Pokemon that can outspeed and one-shot Smeargle, but they have to be on the field at the time that Smeargle is. So, like your agility Metagross has to have gotten that boost before Smeargle hits the field, or your choice band Salamence has to already be there, right? So, there are some other Pokemon that have access to BP, Taunt, and a Sleep move, and that would be Hypno and Mawile. Hypno has Hypnosis, and Mawile has Sing. Obviously, these are not quite as good because these moves are very inaccurate as compared to Spore, which is just 100% accuracy. But nevertheless, Smeargle gets to make use of a lot of these anti-phasing strategies, and some Pokemon can make use of them in other ways. So take, for example, Zapdos can use agility. It's faster than everything, and if what your opponent is trying to do is roar your Zapdos away before it gets the Baton Pass off, you can simply click roar yourself and force that Pokemon out. And if it forces your opponent out into something that does not have a phasing move, then you can Baton Pass. That phasing is not going to occur, and then you're able to get your strategy off from there. So, anti-phasing basically forces 50-50s. Oftentimes, anti-phasers in a Baton Pass chain are trying to keep their substitute up to allow for a safe switch to a speed boost abuser. So, like, say for example, we'll use Smeargle as an example, right? Smeargle has its Baton Pass up. You've switched to it's got its substitute up. And you've switched to your phaser. Now, Smeargle is going to probably either taunt or spore you so that you're not able to get your phasing off. And that in that case, the substitute is preserved. Smeargle can go for whatever boosting it's trying to do, like Dragon Dance or Agility or Belly Drum or whatever the case may be. And then past that, and your Pokemon is going to be really limited in its ability to get that phase off. Now, sometimes you can kind of brute force and get your phase, but like when things like sleep are involved, like there's only like a 50% chance that you're waking up in time to get the phase off. Or you're having to pick between attacking to eliminate Smeargle's sort of substitute, or going for Roar to stop that Smeargle from being able to pass to something that was going to abuse that boost and beat you. So if you pick wrong, you might just lose the game right there. When playing against such a team, yeah, like I said, you're going to have to pick between destroying the sub or phasing. And yeah, I mean, I already kind of explained all this, so we're just going to look at this replay here. So get into a different presentation mode. And the player who's going to be using this strategy is this QUUU Bone. I hope I said that right. So we have Vaporeon lead versus a Tyranitar. Usually Vaporeon lead is Salac, but this Vaporeon is not, as you'll see with the leftovers healing. goes for a Hydro Pump, which does a lot of damage to that Zapdos that switched in. We see a switch to Snorlax from the Roared in Marowak, who should be able to handle Zapdos quite easily. Goes for a Focus Punch into Skarmory, so very nice to get that. I imagine that was probably trying to get the Tyranitar, but fine to get the Skarmory. And Snorlax is just going to keep punching. Actually going to go for counter here, so really, really well played by QUUU Bone, as we managed to get rid of that Skarmory. Going to counter again to hit this Tyranitar for a lot of damage. And then Focus Punch to try to catch Tyranitar going maybe for a Dragon Dance, but no such luck. Vaporeon comes back in, threatening to kill this Tyranitar, and it manages to land the Hydro Pump and does so. Zapdos will come in now, and it's threatening to just kill this Vaporeon, which QUUU Bone is going to allow. I'm going to refer to this player as Q-Bone from now on. Smeargle is in, and it's going to Dragon Dance in the face of Zapdos as Gengar switches in. Gengar is probably threatening to boom, so Smeargle is going to put it to sleep. Now, Smeargle is going to Dragon Dance again to get another stack of boosts here, and taunts the Zapdos, stopping it from being able to roar. So this is really, really important here. Sleep is an anti-phasing mechanic, because a Pokemon that is asleep is not able to click its moves, really, until it wakes up. So that stops roar. But taunt is also anti-phasing because it stops the opponent from being able to use roar for 2 turns. So this turn, Zapdos will not be able to use roar. The next turn, Zapdos will also not be able to use roar, so we can effectively pass this boost to something that would abuse it, like Marowak, and probably live a hit from Zapdos, which Marowak, I think, would live the hidden power here. It's really, really nice to have that taunt, because sleep by itself would not be sufficient here, because we already put the Gengar to sleep. So by the Sleep Clause mod, we're not able to put another Pokemon to sleep with Spore, so we have to use taunt in order to stop the phasing here. So what I just said is going to happen here. Marowak is coming in with the +2/+2 on a Thunderbolt, which not going to be great for the Zapdos. Marowak goes for Rock Slide and misses, and that would have been the chance to roar and stop this chain from happening, but instead the opponent goes for Hidden Power, does not finish off the Marowak. The next Rock Slide will land, Earthquake is going to one-shot kill Swampert, and the opponent is going to forfeit. Presumably their last is something like Blissey. Blissey's not going to be able to take an Earthquake. Gengar is still asleep, and it would have to dodge a Rock Slide in order to be able to, even maybe wake up. Even if it does dodge the Rock Slide, chances are it's still going to be asleep the next turn, and Marowak gets another shot to get that Rock Slide off. So this is brutal. As you see here, turn 14, it's kind of a 50-50. What Zapdos should do here, given that Smeargle is going to taunt, is Thunderbolt and try to eliminate the Smeargle. It might not even get there, but it would have a chance at least. It could get the paralysis, it could get a crit. Maybe Smeargle does not have enough attack, or I should say HP and Spadef investment to live the Zapdos. And yeah, I mean, but the opponent correctly identifies that it would be an issue if Marowak was able to come in with all those boosts. So they're really, really incentivized to go for this roar here. So taunt is not a very hard click for Cubone, the player here. And yeah, I know who this player is, by the way. So no need in the comments to tell me who it is. I know, but it's not super duper relevant, I wouldn't say, for the sake of examining this replay. It's null, by the way. Yeah. And then I think maybe you could make the argument here that this Zapdos should go for the Hidden Power to try to get the Marowak, which is pretty obviously switching in. But like we see on turn 16 here, like, you're not even guaranteed to get that kill. And perhaps this might not have even been a roll. Maybe Marowak is EV'd to live such a situation against this Zapdos. And, like, yeah, then you're praying for a Rock Slide miss, which it did happen here. And if you managed to chain together 2 hidden powers, then you would have beaten Cubone. But, like, you're praying for, essentially, that you managed to call correctly that they're going to switch to Marowak, which if they stayed in with Smeargle, got another boost, then maybe that's not even, like, relevant anymore. Perhaps this Marowak has, like, Double Edge, and Double Edge would have easily killed here. I think I actually probably would have killed anyway with +2, but I digress. So yeah, like, there's a couple 50-50s going on here, and then you're also praying that you dodge a Rock Slide, and you're getting a roll and stuff like that. So it's just not really that good here for our buddy Akimbo Modelos, which is a fantastic username, in fact. I hope you're watching this to hear some praise on your username there. In any case, we're going to talk about Smeargle DD Pass, which we saw an example of that in the previous slide here. So, Smeargle has many options for passing stats. Literally every stat passing move in the game Smeargle has access to. But Dragon Dance is preferred because it has that speed plus attack boost. There are very, very few Pokemon that have the conjunction of Dragon Dance and Baton Pass. In fact, Smeargle might be the only Pokemon that does. I would not be surprised. Somebody in the comments will let me know, in fact, that Smeargle is the only one. Or maybe I'm missing, like, I don't know who. Thankfully, we don't have anything like Quiver Dance or Victory Dance or Geomancy or anything like that to deal with in this generation. But, yeah. Smeargle's goal is to find a matchup where it lives a hit, will outspeed after a DD, which is almost every Pokemon, and click Spore to free up turns to either DD again or Baton Pass to the abuser. And then Taunt is really good for additional anti-phasing measures. So, there you go. He's so smart, that boy, Smeargle the Beagle. We're going to look at some replays here. Null is the gamer here, Cubone or whatever their nickname is supposed to be. And we're just going to watch them here. Do some light commentary over the top. Vaporeon lead versus the Skarmory. As it gets a substitute versus Blissey, who's not going to be able to break this Vaporeon's sub unless it has Thunderbolt. Assuming it doesn't, Blissey's just going to switch, and Smeargle gets a free turn here to get a Dragon Dance, which is going to guarantee that it's faster than Milotic. It's already faster. And Smeargle should live a Surf unless it crits. So it does. Now it's going to Spore to guarantee that it will not take another hit from Milotic. Milotic is going to switch hard to Gengar here, which basically gets rid of all the risk for Null, because they can go to Marowak with this +2/+2, and assuming they hit all their moves, they're just going to win the game. The play for the opponent here actually would have been to stay in with Milotic and try to get another Surf off. But that's not even like a super duper consistent strategy, because as you saw, the Smeargle healed out of range of the next Surf. You would have to crit. And they could just reapply the sleep and then pass to the Marowak, and then you have to play for that second turn wake up again. So, yeah, not very good. And then that's not even to mention, perhaps this Marowak has the special defense to live a Surf from the Milotic. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's possible. In which case, that form of counterplay wouldn't have even existed there. And then, yeah, Marowak is just going to sweep through this team. It would have been a 12-turn game, revealed only 3 Pokemon. And all 3 of these Pokemon are UUBL, and this gamer is at 17-13. Like, you're getting all the ladder achievements off of one replay here, which is really, really cool, I guess. Next victim of Null here is gamer Graham, who's got the Zapdos lead versus Vaporeon. This is a very classic lead for the Vaporeon, but in fact, the Zapdos is going to substitute. Snorlax is going to come in and go for a Focus Punch as the substitute gets passed to Celebi, that crit, I don't know if it mattered. It might have. But in any case, the Smeargle is going to come in, take that leech seed. It doesn't want to be leech seeded, so Salamence is going to come in now. It's threatening an HP flying into the Celebi, which is going to be very, very powerful. And force the switch to Zapdos as Salamence goes for Dragon Dance. Now it's threatening a strong Rock Slide into the Zapdos. Zapdos is going to opt to stay in, and it dives to Rock Slide. Now Milotic can come in, who should be able to live a hit from Salamence, so we're going to see a switch to Snorlax, who takes an Ice Beam. Snorlax is going to Focus Punch, probably just wanting to not allow particular Pokemon to switch in. But identifying that Gamergram is just wanting to surf down, Vaporeon is going to switch in, blank the surf because of Water Absorb, get a substitute up versus the Celebi. Now we're going to pass to Smeargle, who is behind a substitute, has a safe turn to click Dragon Dance to be faster than the Celebi, and can now go for Spore. So this Celebi here is not going to be able to do anything for the next turn or so. It switches out. Natural Cure cures the sleep, which allows Smeargle to put the next Pokemon to sleep. And then the opponent switches again. Baton Pass to Marowak, and yeah, it's over. I will say, like, now that we have seen this team, I hope that you understand what the sort of counterplay is here. You can't switch. You cannot give a free turn on that Baton Pass because you will just lose. Like, from that position, there's nothing that could have been done short of dodging a Rock Slide. But even then, Rock Slide didn't even have to be clicked to win this game here. So when you have like a sleeping Pokemon like that, the only thing you can really do is play for the wake up. And if you don't wake up, well, you lose anyway. So that's really tough. Final game here is against Pokefreak. We'll switch Null to the left side for consistency's sake. Tyranitar versus Vaporeon. Really good matchup for Vaporeon, who's going to substitute as Tyranitar just goes for Rock Slide, not allowing that substitute. Vaporeon can substitute again, as Tyranitar just goes for another Rock Slide. We'll see if Null decides to switch it up and go for a Hydro Pump. He does, and kills that whole Tyranitar off. Pokefreak takes a little bit of time to decide to go to Dugtrio, who traps and Earthquakes the Vaporeon, which against most teams that would use like a Salac Vaporeon lead, that is a really good play. But Salamence can come in, punish that Dugtrio by going for HP flying as Blissey comes in and soft boils. Now we're going to see Snorlax, who's probably forcing this Blissey out with Focus Punch into Skarmory. Very good damage. I would anticipate that Null is just going to Focus Punch again. As Skarmory goes for Thief, which is actually really nice. It breaks the focus of Snorlax and removes its leftovers. Now Skarmory can just kind of get its layers up if it so chooses. We're going to see a Protect on a Focus Punch turn here. And Pokefreak is going to play around the Focus Punch. But how many turns do you have to get right here to avoid taking damage on Skarmory? In fact, Pokefreak is just built different and is going to spike on the switch to Smeargle. Dragon Dance, a Roar. Metagross is in. If this is Houdini, it's threatening to Boom. We're going to see Null switch back to Smeargle, probably anticipating a Protect from the Skarmory, and now Smeargle is going to Taunt, which means that Skarmory is unable to Roar. The only thing that Skarmory can do now is Thief, so it's kind of forced to switch. Smeargle Dragon Dances as we get a switch to Claydol, and now Claydol is going to sleep. So this is kind of like this conjunction of Taunt and Sleep once again is presenting a lot of problems for the opponent. Taunting the Skarm means that the switch in is now threatened to be put to sleep. It has burned 2 turns of sleep here, but Claydol is going to be asleep for a 3rd turn, and now Marowak is just going to win the game here. Goes for Focus Punch as Skarmory clicks Protect. That's not really going to save Skarmory because the only thing you can really do is Thief. Okay, 7%, very good. Gonna focus punch again. Pokefreak is once again gonna call this right with the thief. The reason why you can't go for Roar here is Roar has lower priority than Focus Punch. Focus Punch is -3, so it will happen before the Roar goes off. And Focus Punch from a +2 Marowak is a one-shot kill on Skarmory guaranteed. So, Pokefreak is right to not go for Roar here, but the thing is, like, Marowak's own... like, Focus Punch is the only move that one-shots Skarmory, but it's not the only move it has to hit Skarmory. So if Null decides to switch it up and go for a Rock Slide, that's going to do a lot of damage to Skarmory. Skarmory is going to take that to the face and Thief. Now Skarmory is in range of the next Rock Slide, so there's not really a 50-50 going on here. This Skarmory just has to click Roar and hope that it dodges the Rock Slide. You can switch to Milotic, which takes one Rock Slide, fine. Then you click Rock Slide again. In my opinion, you probably should just click Earthquake there, because, like, I mean, what is Skarmory going to do if it switches back in, right? I guess the argument is that if Skarmory switches back in on an Earthquake, then it can heal enough to just protect, but it kind of does that anyway. And then you're risking the chance that you miss Rock Slide into the Milotic, as it could go for Surf, and that would just ruin the strategy here. Although you do have enough pieces that you might just be able to win the game anyway. Now the Skarmory goes for Thief, as Null clicks Rock Slide, and because Pokefreak didn't get literally every single play right, Null is just going to take this one. Now you could say, well, Pokefreak should have just roared on the turn that Marowak went for Rock Slide. Okay, I mean, that's easy to say in hindsight, but, like, what are you, like, are you going to make that play? What if you get Focus Punched? Then you just lose the game on the spot, right? So, it's, like, not an easy 50-50 to have to call. And even if you get it right, even if the Skarmory manages to get the Roar off, well, what if Smeargle comes back in, gets a Sleep off, gets the Dragon Dance, passes to one of Marowak or Salamence, whoever is better against whoever's in, and then just wins the game again anyway. Like, you know, like, how many turns is it acceptable to get wrong to be guaranteed to lose the game, essentially? Like, are we saying that if you do not get every single play right, you deserve to lose? Like, maybe, but, like, that's not the case for Null's team. Null can get one or two plays wrong. Null got a bunch of plays wrong, in fact. All those Focus Punches into the Thief were wrong plays. But even then, it's like, okay, you just get to try again. Like, it's not that big a deal if you get the play wrong there. Now, if you get the play wrong on a Rock Slide, maybe a little bit worse. But, like, your opponent has to make, like, a really risky play where if they get it wrong, they lose. And if you get it wrong, well, you get to try again. So it's, like, not so terrible. So, yeah, that's basically it for that DD Pass team. Now we're getting down to the fifth layer, which is going to be some esoteric knowledge here. We love that. We're talking about Mead Pass and the Pokemon Venonat. Thinking, what? Venonat? Well, I'm making you wait for it, because we're going to talk about Mead Pass first. So, Mead is the name of a player whose active showdown username or alt is Kickwin. You may have played against Kickwin if you're in, like, the 1600 range. Kickwin, good player. Mead, good player. So, shout-outs to you. They're best known for pushing the boundaries of Baton Pass chains. Prior to the one stat passer clause, Mead used a team that featured Hypno as a phasing disruptor and CM passer. So the idea is you had some number of Baton passers on the team that had some number of boosting moves like Iron Defense and Agility and stuff like that. And the goal of Hypno was to be the Calm Mind passer. And then with the combination of Taunt and Hypnosis, it can kind of do the same thing that we saw Smeargle doing. Now that teams are limited to one baton passer, or sorry, one like stat passer, baton pass chains have to get more creative with maintaining their boosts. So meat pass is kind of referring to one particular team, but it kind of has been synecdoche to a larger umbrella. That's a great word there. You should learn that one if you don't know it. So we're going to take a look first at an example of what Mead Pass used to look like. And this is from a tournament game. I don't know what tournament this was, but it is featuring ABR, so you know it's got to be good. Let's start. And just for reference, this game was played August 31st, 2021. Coincidentally, 4 years after this Speed Pass suspect test is going to be due. Interesting. Let's continue on. Lead Smeargle versus Lead Venusaur. Who's going to put whom to sleep first? It looks like Smeargle is faster and gets the spore off. We're going to see some spikes from the Smeargle, so maybe this Smeargle is not even a stat passer at all. Gets 2 spikes down at the cost of its life, which is probably fine. As Zapdos goes for Substitute on a switch to Claydol. It's going to Agility, because Claydol does not have a consistent move to break Zapdos's Substitute, unless it's running something like Rock Slide. Instead, it's going to go for Psychic and get a critical hit. We'll see if that matters. Maybe not, because Claydol's simply just going to spin the hazards away. As we get a pass to the Vaporeon. Now, you're going to have to... let's see if... No, that doesn't fix it. So, this is like a kind of buggy replay because like things are not allowed anymore. But this Vaporeon did have a Substitute in front of it. The Substitute is now faded, and it has a +2 stat boost. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about that. And the Vaporeon is going to get a Substitute. Keep in mind, it has a +2 to speed. It's going to pass that Substitute to Hypno, who is going to tank it and maintain the Substitute. Now the Substitute is faded, and Hypno is currently sitting at +1 special attack, +1 special defense, and +2 speed. -1 attack from the Gyarados switch in. Sets its own Substitute. Going to go for Taunt against this Gyarados, who is going to try to Dragon Dance. That's failing. Going to pass the boost. So let's see if I kept track of them. It's +1 special attack, +1 special defense, +2 speed, -1 attack, and a Substitute. It's going to take a Hidden Power, presumably flying, and break the sub that is in front of the Vaporeon. Vaporeon's going to go for Acid Armor to get +2 defense. Probably going to just do it again. In fact, actually going to get a Substitute before that. Gyarados at +1 is unable to break the Substitute as Vaporeon goes for Acid Armor again. It's at +4 defense, probably just going to get another Substitute. That's right, as Gyarados goes for a Dragon Dance, kind of in vain, maybe. Goes for Double Edge, which is still not able to break the Substitute from the Vaporeon, as Vaporeon goes for Roar. Now it's baton passing to Hypno, who, alright, let's see if I kept track of this, has a Substitute, has +4 defense, has +1 special attack, +1 special defense, -1 attack, and +2 speed. The Claydol is going to Earthquake and break the sub in front of the Hypno, as Hypno goes for another Substitute. And Claydol is just going to explode, so not so great. You don't get much value out of that. As Hypno goes for a Substitute in front of a Metagross, and Hypno Substitute survives a Meteor Mash thanks to that defense boosting. So now Hypno is going to Calm Mind. It is now at +2 special attack and special defense. Substitutes. A Meteor Mash is going to miss, allowing Hypno some more turns to get some more Calm Mind boost. It's now +3/+3. Meteor Mash still not able to break the Substitute. +4/+4. Meteor Mash now breaks the Substitute. We can see a Substitute once again from the Hypno as Metagross misses another Meteor Mash. And now we're just going to pass to the Jirachi, who has a substitute, has +4 special attack, +4 special defense, +4 defense, +2 speed, -1 attack. Oh my god, that was a fucking mouthful. Alright, so finally we get a raise on our Metagross, but in vain. The Jirachi is going to go for a Fire Punch and just straight up kill. And presumably this Super Rachi, I assume it's a Super Rachi, is just going to sweep through this team. Venusaur is asleep. It's not going to be able to live a +4 Fire Punch or Psychic. Nor will Magneton. Gyarados will probably also die to a +4 Psychic, and presumably whatever is in the back is not, like, literally, like, Blissey. And even if it was, like, Blissey's still going to lose in the long run to this Jirachi. So, yeah. That was a evil game. Mead would oftentimes pass to Mr. Mime as the abuser. This is part of the reason why Mr. Mime specifically got banned. And Mr. Mime is great because it can't get roared, so it can kind of just boost on its own. It can get its own Calm Minds up. So that is like a staple of the Mead Pass, but as I said, it's been branched out to kind of become an umbrella rather than just one team, and this is sort of an example of what you would see for Mead Pass. But Mead Pass kind of persists. We're going to look at what a modern day Mead Pass looks like. So this is a ladder replay from this month, August 5th, 2025, with Uzi Gibb and Sub Sneed, better known as Jonold on the left and Jumpy on the right. In the high 1600s, so this is a pretty good game here, you would think. Zapdos lead versus a Swampert. Zapdos is going to substitute against this Armaldo, who might be able to break the substitute with Rock Blast. But instead we're going to get a switch to Mawile, who's going to get a Intimidate drop on the Armaldo and resist the Rock Blast. So Mawile is like specifically good here, but Mawile is, while you might not see it as a very common Pokemon, it is really nice in a Baton Pass chain like this because it has access to Baton Pass, it has access to Intimidate to hurt these physical attackers, particularly the ones that need a normal or a rock type move in order to beat Zapdos. And we'll see what else it can do. It's just going to Baton Pass to Smeargle, who's going to Spore the Swampert, so no Roar, no Surf to break the sub, and it's just going to Baton Pass to the Hariyama right away, as the Swampert wakes up immediately and roars out. We're going to see a dry pass, in fact, to Celebi, who's going to Baton Pass, cure itself, to Zapdos, in versus Jirachi. Jirachi is going to Ice Punch, but that's not going to do that much. Jumpy says, go to jail to Jonold, something that I have definitely thought in my mind playing Jonold before. I'm not going to make any assuasions about that. I don't know if that's a word. You can look that up. If it's not, I just made it up. I'm going to comment that this Jirachi is now asleep. Gyarados is going to come in to Intimidate as we pass to Mawile, who is going to tank a Hidden Power Flying from this -1 Gyarados. And now we're going to Baton Pass once again to the Hariyama, who's going to Whirlwind. And yeah, so its Whirlwind was faster, not because it's got that +2 speed, well, actually kind of because it has that +2 speed, but because the Swampert tried to go for Roar. And we successfully Whirlwinded to a Pokemon like Claydol, who does not have access to a Phazing move, which means that Hariyama can now go for Belly Drum, which is going to maximize its stat boosts in attack. Now it's +4, +2. Gyarados is going to come in to Cycle and Intimidate and take a Hidden Power Ghost, barely lives it. And then Gyarados is dead to the follow-up Brick Break. So hopefully this Swampert can survive. It does not. And Jumpy has some feelings about that, as Donald will take that W and those 22 points. Yeah, really weird team here. Mawile, did you expect to see Mawile? You probably did, because if you're watching this, you're probably also a Jimothy Cool watcher, and you saw his video on this particular team here. This is not the only sort of version of a Baton Pass chain that kind of falls into this umbrella of Mead Pass, if we're really stretching the definition of Mead Pass. But yeah, Mawile is a very interesting part of this team. But the Pokemon that really makes this work is this Hariyama, because it's I think it's the only Pokemon that has access to Belly Drum and a Phazing move. So it can receive a speed boost. Essentially what it's trying to do is get the speed boost behind a substitute, and then the only sort of counterplay to it is roaring it, and you're going to go for Whirlwind. You're going to be faster than pretty much every phaser because you have that +2 speed boost, and then you just win the game. So really cool if you're into that sort of thing. I think that strategy, I don't know if I'd put it in as harsher terms as jumpy, but I do think that strategy is kind of cringe because it's really difficult to play around it. So yeah. Now we're going to talk about Venonat. Venonat is seriously used in ADV? I know, you're surprised, right? Well, the answer to that is sort of. Venonat's ability, Compound Eyes, increases the accuracy of its moves, and namely this is going to be used to help with Sleep Powder. So Compound Eyes is a 1.3 times accuracy boost, so Sleep Powder being a 70% accurate move times 1.3 is effectively now a 91% accurate move. So that's even more accurate than, say, Rock Slide. So pretty good. This means that a Mon with a speed boost can pass a sub to Venonat, and Venonat can put the opponent to sleep. So that's really cool for Venonat, right? Is Venonat uniquely positioned to perform this role? The answer to that is sort of, once again. Venonat is the only Pokemon that has the combination of Compound Eyes and Baton Pass. The other Compound Eyes havers in this tier are Butterfree and Yanma, but neither of them get Baton Pass, which is kind of surprising. I would have thought Yanma would, but then we would have like Diet Ninjask, so I don't know about that. This means that if we hypothetically banned Spore plus BP or Smeargle plus BP, then Venonat can still replicate the Sleep plus BP abuse with 91% effectiveness. Now, Venonat does not get access to Taunt, I don't believe, so it's going to be a little bit more limited in how it can anti-phase, but nevertheless, it can still get a little bit of anti-phasing off. So what does this mean? If a strategy enables a Pokemon like Venonat to succeed in High Ladder, or even potentially in a tournament game, that might be an indicator that there's something kind of broken about the strategy. Now, I want to make note here. I'm not saying that, like, ADV should be this tier where only this select pool of Pokemon should be viable. You know, like, that's really lame to, like, reduce a tier down to that. Also, I have not made any mention of the music, but this is probably my favorite track in all of Pokemon Rescue Team DX, so I hope that you guys get to hear it and enjoy it. The sort of point that I'm making here is that Venonat is a Little Cup Pokemon. It's not fully evolved. It has ridiculously low stats. Its best base stat is like 50. Is that a Pokemon that is designed or supposed to be used in a competitive context? I would argue probably not, right? So if you have a strategy that makes a Pokemon like that, like any level of consistent, then it's possible that there may just be like something fundamentally broken about that strategy. At least I'm trying to present that argument. You can disagree with me. I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to show this replay here. So let's switch to the different presentation mode. And wouldn't you know it, it's our good old buddy Jonald. We're actually going to put him on the left side here versus a player using the same avatar, Zen Chaos here. I know that this is like the default avatar, literally like the first avatar that you get if you open up Showdown for the first time. But I always kind of associate this avatar with triangles because he always uses this one. Maybe not always, but like most of the time does. And like triangles is just one of the best ADV gamers in the format. Donald is also really, really good though. So maybe we'll say this is like Lucas B, right? I think that's the name of this avatar. Or maybe it's Diamond, I'm not sure. We're moving on. Stall Lord Jonald, the Zapdos, who is slower than this Breloom. Interesting. Jonald is going to stubbornly stay in to try to wake up, though, and go into agility. So now it is faster than the Breloom, who's going to get a Focus Punch off for a not that impressive 29%. Zapdos is going to substitute here. Oh, by the way, this song's a medley. I think it's of remixes of Gates to Infinity, which has a very, very good soundtrack. So, yeah. Baton passes to Mawile, who's going to get a Intimidate on this Claydol, but Claydol is going to Ice Beam. Mawile can substitute, and it unfortunately is not going to be able to live that Earthquake. Now we get a Baton Pass as the opponent switches to Blissey, and we see Venonat. This is the first time I'm seeing its back sprite in Showdown anyway. And it goes for Sleep Powder on the Tyranitar. Keep in mind that is a 91% accurate move. Going to Baton Pass to Hariyama, who is going to be able to Belly Drum in front of this Claydol. Yep. Claydol can go for Psychic to break the sub, but, I mean, the damage has already been done. Hariyama is in. It's got +2 speed, +6 attack. Super effective Hidden Power Ghost to hit that Claydol. And Brick Break is going to kill Jirachi, and there's just no hope in hell for our buddy Zen Chaos. Maybe if they had Focus Punch on Breloom, they could, like, crit it and maybe get through this Hariyama. But, alas, that is not the case, and Jonald is going to get up to 1700, which happens to be the elo that you need to get the Suspect Rex. So, if maybe if this team was kind of like cloistered and saved, then you could have easily gotten there. But Jonald also got the Suspect Rex in the first day, so it doesn't really matter. Maybe he did use his team. I'm not sure. I got the pleasure of playing against Jonald, like literally minutes before the Suspect ladder dropped. So I do have an idea of what team he was using. So maybe that was the team he did use to get to 1700. And if that's the case, I have that replay. So I will be stealing that. Perhaps. We'll see. I'm not sharing. I'm gatekeeping. And yeah, that is the use of Venonat there. So Venonat's not the only Pokemon that could make use of that. Of course, you could use Mawile, who also has Sing and Taunt, or Hypno. Gosh, I love this part of the song as well. Listen, I've been talking for 2 hours and 18 minutes here. I get to indulge in the music a little bit, okay? And this is why I always kind of live commentate with the music going, because, geez, I just love to talk about the music. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Venonat. Venonat, again, it's not the only Pokemon that can do this. It is one of the more consistent ones, though. It's not technically as consistent as Smeargle, but it's 91% of the way there, literally. So, are we saying that a ban of Smeargle is going to be enough to stop these sort of Mead Pass chains that arguably are uncompetitive? You could argue it's not, in which case we're then you're saying why even ban a Smeargle or Baton Pass on Smeargle? Well, if you're of the opinion that these Mead Pass teams are uncompetitive, then now the question is, should we ban Venonat as well? And then if we ban Venonat, it's are we okay with allowing this sort of strategy with a little bit less consistency, like Hypno using Hypnosis. So are we okay? We're not okay with 100% accurate sleep with this. We're not okay with 91% accurate sleep. Are we okay with 60% accurate sleep? And then if that's not the case, are we okay with 55% accurate sleep with Sing? Like it gets ridiculous to the point where it's like maybe we would just have to ban Sleep Move plus Baton Pass as a whole, right? Which honestly, I don't hate that idea. That could be a sort of strategy for curbing this, but that is kind of where this discussion goes. So I hope that all of you who have engaged with this video with the mindset of Ninjask is the public enemy #1 can now come away with this saying, you know what, actually, Smeargle and Venonat are pretty bad too. Or maybe you've come to this and said, you know, actually, Ninjask is not that bad. Because I would argue, at least from my perspective, that I think that Smeargle and Venonat are actually doing more, like, dangerous and uncompetitive things than Ninjask is. Like, with that Sand Attack, like, you still have a 75% chance to get the Roar off. And, like, yeah, Ninjask can try it again, but it has to try it again a lot of times. And there's definitely room for you to get an attack off on the Ninjask while it's going for Sand Attack, and then that kind of just ruins the Ninjask from there. Whereas Venonat and Smeargle are a lot more consistent at not taking an attack that they don't want to take. So, there you go. But really what I'm saying is don't limit yourself to Venonat as a sleeper. Here's a replay of Venusaur receiving a speed boost and then putting the opponent to sleep and then trying to SD and win the game. So, whoops, go to this presentation mode. And this is pretty high up on the ladder here. This Magriana is almost 1800, which is probably top 1 or 2 at the time that this game is played, versus Heavy Bow Guy, a member of Zetz's Discord. So, very cool. Lead Tauros versus Salamence. Trading Intimidates. As the Tauros goes for Hyper Beam into a Skarmory switch, it's probably the worst Pokemon you could see going for Hyper Beam. Skarmory's going to opt to go for a Toxic rather than a Spike. I think maybe, arguably, you should get the Spike there, but if you're getting a free turn, you might as well go for the Toxic, right? Tauros can't switch directly to Magneton there, and if you do have Magneton, at least you're getting a Spike on the next turn. So, Flamethrower into the Snorlax, not doing very much, as Snorlax is threatening to Curse in front of a Celebi. Celebi's going to go for Leech Seed and take a Shadow Ball for its troubles. Critical hit does 98%. That's not great, but Celebi probably has Recover. It does, and it manages to sort of weather the storm there, as Metagross is going to switch into a Double Edge from Tauros. Takes not that much, all things considered. And we're going to see a double to Salamence on the Magneton. Now we're going to get back to Snorlax, who's going to take a Flamethrower, threatening a 10% burn. Does not get it. Now goes for Brick Break, as the Snorlax curses. Would have been in range of another Brick Break had it not gotten the defense boost, but it does have that, and it's going to simply boom and eliminate a Celebi. Very nice. Tauros comes in, gets an Intimidate on the Mence, and is threatening now a strong Hyper Beam. Instead goes for Double Edge, which is going to do practically nothing to the Metagross. Metagross will protect, as Tauros, presumably Choice Banded, is locked in. And yeah, that's not great. Now Ninjask is going to come in, going to substitute and dodge a Meteor Mash. Goes for a Hidden Power, probably Bug, which doesn't do that much to Metagross. Now Metagross gets a Raise. Ninjask is going to protect. It's basically going to have to PP stall this Metagross out of Meteor Mashes, but instead we're actually going to see a Baton Pass to the Magneton, who's going to dodge the +1 Meteor Mash. would have taken it decently well, but Metagross is not low enough, in fact, for that Magneton to kill with T-Bolt. Ninjask is going to go and play for the roll and gets it on the Metagross. Now Ninjask is going to speed boost up against the Salamence, who's got a pretty consistent Dragon Claw to attack with. But we're seeing a switch to Venusaur, who has that +2 speed boost, -1 attack. Jeez, like this song is just so great. You should listen to this one. And Sleep Powder to put the Blissey to sleep. Starmie will be the switch in as Venusaur goes for Swords Dance. Venusaur should be faster and gets the Sleep Powder off on the Starmie, and now it has another turn to attempt to Swords Dance, probably. Instead goes for Sludge Bomb, which arguably was not the play there. Goes for Sleep Powder and misses, as Mence goes for Flamethrower. Venusaur lives that. Can go for another Sleep Powder, as the Mence is going to be asleep. I would probably go for a Swords Dance here. Yes. Now Starmie is in. It's not going to be able to be put to sleep. Unfortunately, though, Sludge Bomb is not enough to kill this defensive Starmie, who is going to switch out back to Salamence, gets the Intimidate, drops the Venusaur to +1 attack, now opts to sack the Skarm, goes to Salamence to cycle another Intimidate, wakes up just in time to get the Flamethrower, does not kill, gets Sludge Bombed. Now we have Lastmon Blissey. And goes for Ice Beam, very nice, into the Venusaur. Ninjask is going to come in and just take some Hidden Power Bug damage. This is communicating to me that this last Pokemon is something that outspeeds and threatens to kill Blissey. Blissey is going to Ice Beam, and we see Marowak. Is Marowak faster than the Blissey? It is, and gets the Earthquake and kills, and that is the game. I think that there were some plays that could have been made a little better from Heavy Bogai's side. Like maybe you should have went more aggressively for a Swords Dance so that you're threatening now even more damage on the Salamence. But nevertheless, this kind of worked here. Like it wasn't even the Baton Passer who had the sleep move. It was the Abuser that had the sleep move that made this a very, very precarious situation for Magriana here. Magriana, I mean, again, you can argue that there's some counterplay here, but you have to, like, one, know the team, and two, like, very consistently be able to beat it with the right moves to win there. Like, going for Meteor Mashes with the Metagross, like, seeing what the rest of his team was, like, that's your best play, basically. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to switch to Blissey and Ice Beam away? Now, granted, seeing that the last two abusers here, Venusaur and Marowak, were weak to it, could have made some sense. But, like, you know, if it's a Marowak, like, that's threatening to do a lot of damage to your Blissey, and you can't kill it with a neutral Ice Beam. So, like, what are you supposed to do? You switch to Mence? What if the Marowak Swords Dance on your switch to Mence? Now you're having to dodge a Rock Slide, basically, in order to win the game. Like, this is... like, there's some 50-50s going on here. So, yeah. Brutal. And you thought that I was done here. I went through all the layers, but I'm here to tell you about a secret layer. This is the Recycle Double Pass. As part of the stipulation of the one boost pass clause, you are limited to one Baton Passer with one source of boosts. So, for example, Salac or Dragon Dance or Agility, that is one source of boost. You can't have more than that in conjunction with Baton Pass. You can use Recycle to sort of exploit a loophole in this. In Generation 3, Recycle restores the last consumed item on your team, not just from the one Pokemon. So in theory, a Pokemon with no held item can use Recycle to farm a Salac Berry from a teammate, use a boosting move of their own, and pass both sources of the boost. So the two Pokemon that have Recycle and Baton Pass are Mr. Mime and Smeargle, and for reasons that we've kind of outlined before, Mr. Mime is banned, so we don't have to worry about that. Soundproof is making it unable to be used. So Smeargle is once again public enemy number 1. And we're going to show a replay using this tech. If you want to see this in a in-game situation, like a real game, you can check out Null's replay from Zetz's replay of the week 10. But I didn't have access to that replay, and I didn't want to bother Null, who I'm sure is a busy person who has probably no doubt had a lot of messages thrown their way. So I just sort of queued up with some fake accounts, and we're going to demonstrate this tech in action. So, Tub of Gymsex and Unbanned Nexhawk. Tub of Gymsex only has 3 Pokemon on their team. So, Vaporeon is going to take a modest Thunderbolt from Zapdos and get a lucky critical hit on the Ice Beam there. Then it's going to get its Salac boost. Goes for a Hydro Pump into the Snorlax as Snorlax goes for return and kills the Vaporeon. Now Smeargle is in. Smeargle is going to substitute as the Snorlax foolishly goes for a Curse. Unbanned Nexhawk, you're stupid. And Smeargle is going to go for Belly Drum. Snorlax is going to overpredict and go for a Shadow Ball. And Smeargle is going to recycle a Salac Berry as Snorlax just doesn't learn its lesson here. Unbanned Nexhawk, you stupid player. I don't know if you saw that, the recycle, it got the Salac Berry, so Smeargle didn't have a Salac Berry. It didn't have any item. It was the Salac Berry that was used up by the Vaporeon that got recycled here. So now Smeargle has a +1 speed boost and a +6 attack boost. And now Snorlax is going to, again, foolishly go for a rest here as Tub of Gymsex is going to go for a Rock Slide. Probably should just go for a Double Edge, but, I mean, live by the Rock Slide, die by the Rock Slide. And now, as you can probably imagine, Aerodactyl is just going to sweep through Unbanned Nexhawk, who is making a mockery of my Ludicolo team. Don't play like this if you're using that Ludicolo team. But also, like, it is not super duper easy to set this up. As you saw, like, Recycle, Substitute, Belly Drum, Baton Pass, you can't fit, like, Spore also on this set. The Vaporeon can't really pass a substitute to the Smeargle because by virtue of holding a Salac Berry, it would make it illegal for Smeargle to have the conjunction of Belly Drum plus Baton Pass. I don't know if we need to have a complex ban on this, maybe the combination of Recycle plus Baton Pass, but like low-key, why don't we just ban Baton Pass on Smeargle? That would save some of the headache here. Now, I kind of just made the argument how that's not going to fix all the problems, but you know, maybe there is an argument that if you can fix some problems, then that's worth trying anyway. So, that was this game. We're going to sort of get towards the end here. I want to talk a little bit about the current Speed Pass suspect test. There have been other suspect tests in ADV's history that have attempted to curb the less competitive elements of Baton Pass. I talked about a few of them. One of them that led to the ABR clause, which limited you to 3 Baton Passers on a team. And Smeargle was banned from using Baton Pass. We've gone to 1 source of boosts per team. And Smeargle has been allowed to use Baton Pass in this metagame. Now we are at a crossroads here where the council is asking us, do we want to ban Speed Pass as a whole? I think that some players have expressed the concern that there are some good applications of Speed Pass. For example, Agility Pass from Layer 2, where something like Zapdos is passing the +2 boost to something like Metagross, and that is helping you to beat teams that are using things like Dugtrio and Aerodactyl, who are very difficult to stop from revenge killing you otherwise. Now, is this the only form of counterplay to these Pokemon? No. You can have Pokemon like Porygon 2 who counter-trap Dugtrio, or Pokemon like Gyarados and Salamence who can switch into Dugtrio, who's locked into Earthquake, and punish by going for a Dragon Dance, because they get the free turn to do so. And that might be game losing for the Dugtrio side, depending on what their team members are. You can have, say, just a team that does not really fear Dugtrio switching in so much, like nothing gets one shot by Dugtrio, and like you can have spikes, which can limit the amount of turns that Dugtrio can come in, etc., etc. For Aerodactyl, you have to be a little bit more blunt with it, like having multiple sturdy rock resists on a team. Maybe you have like Swampert and Metagross, and if Aerodactyl locks into Rock Slide, well, now you have two options that can switch in and threaten to revenge kill Aerodactyl, force it to switch. If you stay up a sack and you keep your rock resist, at least one of them, into the end game, you can probably force a checkmate situation on last one Aerodactyl. But like, that's still kind of limited, right? Banning Speed Pass as a whole gets rid of one of the forms of counterplays to these two Pokemon. So, like, these two Pokemon, Aerodactyl and Dugtrio, will be a little bit more difficult to handle. Now, as one of the things that we talked about sort of suggests, if Dugtrio becomes a big issue, then maybe we just ban Dugtrio after we ban Speed Pass. That is a possibility. Now, that's going to be a big shake-up to the metagame, because this metagame is shaped a lot around Dugtrio. Not like so much. Like certain things like your TSS is still going to probably maintain past the Dugtrio ban, if such a thing was to happen. But, yeah. And then it's not even necessarily true that Dugtrio would be broken if Agility Pass Zapdos didn't exist. Like, there are plenty of teams that do not use Agility Pass and deal with Dugtrio quite well. That being said, some teams do use Agility Pass Zapdos as a primary form of counterplay, so those teams would be less effective, which would be some not so good collateral damage, right? I don't think that those teams with that lead Agility Pass Zapdos to something like a Celebi who's trying to Calm Mind they're not that bad. You can certainly play around those pretty honestly and with traditional means. Like there's not so much bad with that. But I mean, if you're of the opinion that these chain teams are broken, then we do not have the option to say, let's just ban the chain teams. Like, the council has given us kind of this ultimatum of either ban Speed Pass or nothing. So, if you're of the mindset that these chain pass teams are broken with speed, then you probably would still want to vote ban, and it would be unfortunate that we lose Agility Zapdos for that reason. Now, if you're somebody who thinks that Agility Zapdos is a very important part of the game, which, you know, there are people who do think that, and that you're so valid for thinking that, and you think that these like chain pass teams with the speed boost are not inherently uncompetitive, or we can find adaptation, we can play around it, essentially, then you would probably want to vote not ban. And I think that hopefully I presented sort of the facts, at least what is the context of this, what you are kind of voting on here. And you might have some conceptions about what I think But that's not really what's important. I ask you guys what you think, and I hope that I have opened up some of your eyes. Those of you who said, well, like, it's not Speed Pass that's the issue, it's Ninjask, right? I think that there's a lot more to it than that. So, there you go. I do think that this does preserve some elements of... This is like really unfitting music for this. This does preserve some elements to the game, you know. Those of you who like your choice band Ninjask, you don't have to worry. You can still use a choice band Ninjask going into an ADV-OU game, even if Speed Pass does get banned. And that's not even guaranteed that it will, right? So, like, there's plenty of good things that can still maintain in the tier. If you want to use your choice band Ninjask, if you want to use Agility Zapdos, you're not banned from using that. If you want to use Smeargle passing a different stat, or if you want to use some different form of stat passing entirely, then, like, you have that option there. So, yeah. Again, I know I have my biases. I know there are some things that I don't like. I'm not saying necessarily that things I don't like are things that I wish were banned, necessarily. Like, I don't like playing against, like, weird, like, knockoff Pokemon like Kingler, for example. I don't think we should ban Kingler. It just means I don't like playing against it. Jonal is the common theme here, right? But that being said, I know you guys are probably asking me, like, before I even say this, but 20 August 2025, this is how I write my dates, by the way, so if that's weird, sue me. There is a suspect test live, and as of me recording this, which is 21st of August, when this drops, which will probably be sometime this weekend, this suspect test will still be going. It is live until the 31st of August, so you have until the end of the month, basically, to get this in. One day before Revival 3 starts. It's kind of interesting. The requirements are 1700 ELO and 82 GXE. I'm going to tell you this. The GXE is going to be a lot harder to achieve than the ELO. If you're somebody who's looking at this and saying 1700 ELO, that is absurd. Well, for one, probably not going to be able to vote on this suspect test. And for two, I think there is some merit to, like, having some sort of barrier to entry to voting here. I'll put it like this. If chess was going to have, and I'm stealing this analogy from Vapicuno, by the way. If chess was going to have a rule set change that changes how the knight moves, would you rather that everybody who plays chess gets to vote on this, or just the grandmasters who understand the game the best? And I think I would probably rather have the grandmasters vote on that, because they're gonna have, well, they're probably gonna have the best interest of the game at heart, because they are so passionate and so well versed in the game that they've gotten there. And for two, like, they have the best understanding of this. Like, some Joe Schmucks who have played 3 games of chess in their life probably do not understand the ramifications of changing how the knight moves. So, do you want to leave the vote in their hands? I tend to think you wouldn't. And it's a 60% supermajority that has to be reached to ban suspect or Speed Pass. So if only 58% of people who get the requirements say, yeah, ban Speed Pass, that's not good enough. So those of you who are resistant to change and or want to preserve Speed Pass, and I say resistant to change, that's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to stay stable. There's a higher barrier than just a simple majority. So don't worry too much about that. So yeah, the test is live, and I know some of you are probably asking, well, Tetra, are you going to be playing in this suspect ladder? Will I be participating, and what would I vote? Well, I'm not saying like that I certainly will be participating. I do have an account that I did make at the time of the suspect going live that is eligible to vote. Not that I have the requirements. One of the eligibility requirements is that the account has to have not played a Gen 3 game prior to the suspect ladder going live. So I did make a new account. I have played some games on it. I'm not going to tell you what my record is. I'm not going to tell you what my elo is. I'm not going to tell you what the name of the account is or anything like that. You will not be able to tell it's me. So, like, don't try to snipe me. I'm not telling you what team it is or anything like that. So, I will try to get this account some points. If I fail to get there, would I make another account? Depends. I'm not confident in my ability to get there. I have reached 1700 elo before, but only once, and like I definitely had a lot of losses on the way to that. Definitely did not have an 82% GXE. I have not yet tried to play on a new account for the sake of GXE. The newest account that I played on was that Agency Pyramids, which is not the account that I'm using for this suspect test, by the way. Which I did get to 1650. I think my GXE was in the ballpark of 70, but it was with the sort of handicap that I had to use Septile. So, like, I mean, is that a super duper accurate reflector of my GXE? Probably not. I'm not H-Clat. I'm not just going to be really good with a bunch of UUBLs on my team necessarily. So I do think I can get a higher GXE than 70, but 82 is going to be tough. And the 1700 elo is also not given. So all of this basically to say, I don't expect to be voting. I will probably be trying, but I do not expect to be. And what would I vote for? I mean, come on. Like, are you gonna ask me who I voted for president? Like, come on now. Like, let me keep some things to myself here. But I'm still a little on the fence. I could be persuaded either way. If you really, really care about what my vote specifically is going to be, maybe make a case for it in the comments section. And maybe that will change my mind. I'm not going to necessarily just go based on what all the comments think. I have my own opinions about this format and like the things that I like in it. So yeah, I mean, I'll vote if I manage to get the Rex, which I think is unlikely. I will vote the way that I ultimately conclude, and if I do get the Rex, you'll know. And I don't know if I don't know if the votes are like public. If it is public information, I'll let you know. If it's not public information, then I'll leave that up to my future self-discretion whether I'm going to disclose what I voted. So that is basically it for this Iceberg video. This is it's not technically not the longest commentary I've ever done, but this is probably going to be the longest single video that I've done, and I will try to get it out for the weekend. Doesn't really matter because by the time you're watching this, it's already out. So whenever it comes out is when it comes out. I want to tell you guys to check out Zetz's video on Baton Pass, where he talks to some top players about the situation, and they have some good insight that I think it would behoove you to listen to. I think that Z Panther will be coming out with a video not too long from now. Z Panther is making videos again. You should go support Z Panther. Doesn't have as many subscribers as me, which is a goddamn shame. So you should give him your subscribe if you can. But also tell his viewers to come watch my videos because he gets more views than I do. So let's spread the wealth here. But keep your eyes peeled for a Z Panther video coming out in the not too distant future, unless Z Panther decides not to make that video and I got your hopes up for nothing. Sorry to you and Z Panther if that is the case, but whether he makes that video or not, go check him out. He's making some good content and he's a great player. So I will be linking maybe some other resources in the description. Some of them will be Smogon forums. I encourage you to engage with the posts, but I don't encourage you to make half-baked and unsubstantiated comments on the forum so that you don't get clowned. But yeah, I encourage you to engage though. And if you want to have some half-baked, not very well thought out, or like not very experienced takes, then leave them in my comments. All right, I won't clown. Well, I will clown you, but not to your face. So at least there's that. And that will do it. So thank you all for watching. It's been a long ride, and I hope that this was informative for you. So until the next video of mine, take care.